Chapter 1457, Enlightened by the Broken Star. Chapter 1457, Enlightened by the Broken Star. So many big, broken rocks lay on the deep seabed. They looked ancient, as if they had been there for billions of years. Those big rocks were in various shapes. Some looked like a cliff, and some even resembled a broadsword. It was obvious that many of them were cut by sharp blades, as the cut surfaces were flat and smooth. These rocks were scattered everywhere in the sea area. However, these rocks were actually broken stars. Many years ago, a furious war had taken place above the Sea of Annihilation. The floating pieces of broken stars above the sea surface exploded and sank to the seabed. Meiji stood on a rhombus stone and smiled beautifully like a charming fox deity. That war should be very fierce. That's why there are many pieces of broken stars here. It's not rare or strange anyway. Not far from her, Shuryen looked pensive as he stood on a sword-shaped rock. Shuryen and Meiji had moved as fast as lightning until they reached the sea area with so many rocks. Shuryen suddenly slowed down and parted from her. He dashed between the broken pieces. Sometimes he raised his hand to stroke those strange rocks. It made Meiji restless. She didn't know how Shuryen could be at ease like that in this critical moment. He still had the mood to observe the broken stars here. Give me some time here. Shuryen signaled her to stay quiet as he moved around the broken stars. The rocks here had many colors and dots. Some were as smooth as a mirror while others were rough and rigid. Gradually, he closed his eyes, his soul consciousness reaching out like a spider web that moved between the rocks. As soon as he got here, he had a magical feeling in his mind. His star power Upanishad seemed to get stimulated. It seemed like something really marvelous was hiding somewhere in the area filled with pieces of broken stars. Wisps of soul consciousness expanded and created a massive net shrouding the rocks. After a while, his eyes opened and his pupils sparkled strangely. A wisp of his soul consciousness reported a feeble aura from a piece of a broken star. That aura was extremely magical. It seemed to have some soul energy. Shuryen was moved. He turned into a jet of starlight that stopped by a piece of broken star. This rock was dozens of meters tall, and it looked plainly brown-gray. He reached out and placed his hand on that rock. After calming down his mind, he sensed and sent the star energy into the rock. Boom! The brown-gray broken star became dazzling when he sent his star energy into it. The brilliant starlight was like a cold, sharp sword or a bright star in the velvet night. Meiji suddenly saw the dazzling light from a far distance. She was bewildered as she rushed forward. Her beautiful eyes were bright as she stood on another star and watched. At this moment, Shuryen was touching the rock that was emitting starlight, his face focused, but his eyes surprised. This piece of a broken star had a wisp of feeble aura. That aura belonged to this rock. It was a magical feature when a power Upanishad was cultivated to the ultimate level. It finally had consciousness. A scene arose in his head. Tens of thousands of years ago, an expert cultivating star power Upanishad had used his energy to control the stars above the Sea of Annihilation. So many stars had been stimulated and received consciousness that they could proactively seek enemies to attack. The power Upanishad had a spirit. The energy that the expert had cast out received the spirit and turned it into a part of the expert's spirit. It advanced the ability of the power Upanishad to an extremely profound level. After tens of thousands of years, the consciousness of the power Upanishad that had controlled the broken stars had still not faded. As Shuryen also cultivated star power Upanishad, he was able to stimulate something strange from the rocks to see the remaining energy. That's why the rock could emit starlight for a while. The dazzling light from the rock dimmed, and it resumed its normal condition after the star energy was used up. A wisp of soul consciousness hidden inside the rock vanished. Shuryen still touched the rock, his eyes shining. The power Upanishad has its own spirit. Shuryen felt like lightning struck him. While his thoughts changed, starlight shot out from his 10 fingers. 10 jets of starlight turned and moved like 10 spirit snakes. Spirit imprint. 10 soul seals from his host soul entered the 10 jets of starlight. As soon as they departed from his fingers, he cut off the connection. The 10 starlights shot out. Shuryen immediately cut off the control and stopped using the soul consciousness to control them. The connection between Shuryen and the jets of starlight was interrupted. The 10 jets of starlight moved in a straight line. They shelled a piece of a broken star far from him. Oh, it doesn't feel right. Shuryen shook his head. If his power Upanishad had a spirit, once the starlight shot out, he didn't need to use the soul consciousness to guide them. They could attack the target or change their trajectory on their own. Not the right direction then. Mumbling to himself, he changed his technique. As he muttered, another jet of starlight had shot out from his left index finger. With the new perception of star power Upanishad, he used the host's soul to sense the galaxy in his tier of power Upanishads. He created a soul imprint and sent it to the galaxy. Then, with the aura from the galaxy, he carved the imprint onto a jet of starlight. The starlight shot out, but it didn't have the spirit. Not yet. He looked like he was in bedevilment as he continuously shot out starlight and broke many pieces of broken stars. He continued to fail. He didn't know why. He frowned and thought about what to do. He had tried many methods to give spirit to his power Upanishad to understand this power deeper. Meiji quietly watched him. She didn't try to prevent or call him anymore. She knew that Shuryen was trying to break the challenge of understanding the realm. She shouldn't disturb him at this moment. 2 days and 2 nights passed quickly. Meiji found a treasure that was similar to the heavenly fantasy star compass, so she knew the time. 2 days and 2 nights wasn't a long time. Normally, it was just like a blink of an eye. However, to the current situation, 2 days was enough for many things to happen. It was also enough for the enemy to catch them. Seeing Shuryen sink in his cultivation but not get anything, Meiji became restlessly agitated. Time continued to pass. Shuryen was bewildered as he stood in between the broken pieces of stars and tried to understand his power Upanishad. Meiji was so uneasy as if she got a flame that burned her inwardly. Dash! Boom! Boom! Thunder continued to rumble. The energy hit layers of water and shattered them. Farrell howled and finally got free from the water restriction. He thundered indignantly. Emperor Sea Shark. You trapped me and let that kid go. I don't care what kind of purpose you have in your mind. But you must bear the consequences. Emperor Sea Shark and Shinran blocked Farrell's sides, their faces indifferent as they ignored Farrell's shouting. I don't want to talk to you. Where's that kid? I've agreed with the ancient monster clan to take his life and the power Upanishad symbol tower. Farrell wore a cold face. Emperor Sea Shark smirked and shook his head. Farrell, do you still think that you're the best in this sea of annihilation? I know you've tried to provoke me several times. You want to fight me and defeat me. You want to use my defeat to strengthen your high position and receive more recognition from the ancient monster clan. You want them to invite you back to the ancient monster clan with a noble ceremony, right? Is that what you want? His words exposed Farrell's thoughts. Farrell wasn't a member of the ancient monster clan, but he had the ancient monster clan's bloodline. Before he was strong enough, the ancient monster clan didn't pay attention to him. Before he had reached the territory ancestor realm and gained fame in the Sea of Annihilation, the ancient monster clan didn't even look at him. They had sent Yerberg and Hussein to visit him often. Farrell looked arrogant, but deep in his mind, he wanted the ancient monster clan's recognition. He wanted to return to the clan in glory and become one of the experts with the top power. In recent years, he had often provoked Emperor Sea Shark and Ricardo. He wanted to defeat them and become the strongest warrior in the Sea of Annihilation. Then, with this title, he was going to draw the attention of the true experts of the ancient monster clan. They were going to come to the Sea of Annihilation personally to invite him to return to the ancient monster clan to meet his ancestor and offer him the best treatment according to his noble status. It was just an excuse that Farrell wanted to take revenge for Yerberg and Hussein. He just wanted to seize the change to showcase his talents by robbing the power Upanishad symbol tower to prove his ruling status in the Sea of Annihilation. He wasn't afraid of offending the Phantom clan to tie himself together with the ancient monster clan. He had received acceptance from the ancient monster clan's senior echelon. As long as he could take the power Upanishad symbol tower, the Hall of Fame of the ancient monster clan was going to have a slot for him. For this slot, Feral had tried his best to compete. As Emperor Sea Shark had seen through him, Feral darkened his face. What if it's true? What if it's not true? Whether it's true or not, I'll satisfy you today. I'm going to battle you, Feral. I hope it fulfills your wish for years. Emperor Sea Shark grinned. His eyes suddenly turned red, which was similar to Shi Yan's rampage. A brutal, bloodthirsty aura that was completely different from his water power Upanishad suddenly burst out from his body. Shinren was hovering nearby. Seeing Emperor Sea Shark's appearance, he felt worried. The old man had decided to stay because he was worried that Emperor Sea Shark would use the technique that Bloodthirsty had taught him. Once he used it, his competence was going to increase rapidly. However, he would be similar to Shi Yan in that he would lose his mind easily and fall into a slaughtering mode. Don't worry. I understand. I will leave when it's time to leave. Now, don't try to talk me out of it. Emperor Sea Shark grinned as if he understood what Shinren was worried about. He screamed and moved with ease. Stepping on the water current, he strode toward Feral. Feral changed his visage slightly. He lifted his head to watch the water territory above his head as he felt the pressure increase dozens of times. The pressure pushed him everywhere like billions of mountains pounding on him at the same time. At this moment, Feral knew that Emperor Sea Shark wasn't weak and easily bullied. He was a beast in his slumber on the seabed. He disdained to fight against him. And today, he finally awakened. Chapter 1458, Clash of Territories. Chapter 1458, Clash of Territories. The Sea of Annihilation seabed was boiling. Massive bubbles were rising. Emperor Sea Shark was seen in each bubble, each of them an independent world. Inside those bubbles were a reef under the sea, corals, algae, and swimming fish. They were all lively and swarming toward Feral from every direction. Those bubbles came like mountains. Feral was breathless, his face extremely stern. Thunder Nether Territory. A thunder and lightning world arose, inflating like a balloon and covering Feral. That world contained dark blue lightning bolts. Electricity beams crawled and struggled in the sky like giant dragons. Thunderbolts as big as a waterfall connected the netherworld and the sky. At first glance, this entire world of thunder and lightning strikes was supported by countless lightning columns. Feral hovered in the middle of that world like a god of thunder. Shortly after, countless lightning balls condensed. Those lightning balls spun and exploded. An earth-shattering energy explosion appeared in the world of thunder and lightning. It shook the seabed and twisted the entire place. Emperor Sea Shark's water territory and Feral's thunderbolt territory collided and pressed on each other. The water currents and the lightning balls shattered altogether. The shockwaves stirred up the sea area and created many massive whirlpools. Those whirlpools were tens of thousands of meters. Shortly after, they swallowed so many islands on the Sea of Annihilation surface. Rays of light from the energy impact shot to every corner like sharp swords. Many warriors cultivating around the area could see those intimidating lightsabers. They had to run for their lives. However, many of them were killed by the shockwaves of the fierce battle between Emperor Sea Shark and Feral. So powerful. Fierce. It's a battle between real experts. It's the level of Territory Ancestor Realm experts. Do they want to destroy the Sea of Annihilation seabed? Air? When was the last time Territory Ancestor Realm experts fought in the Sea of Annihilation? On the seabed, the sea surface, and even in the sky, many warriors from different clans and forces were startled by the confrontation between Emperor Sea Shark and Feral. They were discussing boisterously. They were excited, scared, and even frantic. Warriors with low realms hurried to move as far away from the area as possible. They were afraid that they could get hurt from the shockwaves. Warriors who thought their realms were high enough became thrilled. They began to gather and head to the battlefield, especially some experts at the Immortal Realm. To understand dark energy, they ignored everything and tried to go closer to observe the battle between the Territory Ancestor Realm experts. They would try everything for a chance to break through. They eagerly came to the seabed. At this moment, so many experts had come to the Sea of Annihilation. The members of the 7 clans who were dispirited because they couldn't find Shiryen came with joy as they recognized that the 2 territory ancestors battling were because of Shiryen. In their eyes, what could make the 2 territory ancestors fight against each other besides the power Upanishad symbol tower? Neptune from the Soul clan was sitting cross-legged on his clouds of brutal souls, countless brutal souls bobbing around him and blackening the entire area. He suddenly opened his eyes and sneered. Interesting. The clouds of brutal souls moved like a black cluster of clouds through the sea and headed toward the furious battle. Inside a rock forest, Forefather Dragon Lizard, Tu Shirchi, and Yun were waiting for Hero of the Whitebone clan. As they felt the earth-shaking commotion of the territory ancestor realm battle, they exchanged looks. Tu Shirchi immediately messaged Hero and then hurriedly headed to the battle area. Chiemo of the Devouring clan appeared on the Sea of Annihilation's surface. Standing behind him were about 10 warriors of the Devouring clan. They stood upright with respect. Chiemo observed the vortexes, listened to the rumbling thunder from the vortexes and frowned. Get to the seabed. Right after that, the Devouring warriors dove deep into the sea. Most of the High Realm warriors from the 5 clans had the same purpose when they came to the match between Emperor Sea Shark and Feral. This match was predestined to attract a lot of people. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Inside the world of thunder and lightning, so many dark blue lightning balls exploded. The power of their explosions was enough to break asteroids or even crush a small star into powder. Emperor Sea Shark's water territory was torn sometimes under the blasting power of the Thunderbolt territory. However, it was like a sword cutting through the water curtain. The water curtain went back to its normal state almost instantly. At this moment, many warriors from the surrounding areas had gathered by the area where the 2 were fighting. Most of them were at the Immortal Realm and well known in the Sea of Annihilation. They had all used their god power to create different colored light cage protections, ranging from blue, red-orange, emerald, silver, and lime. The rainbow light twirled around the light cages. It was the sign of highly condensed god power. Emperor Sea Shark's and Feral's energies had collided, electricity beams sparking. Those electricity beams could kill incipient god realm experts quickly. Thus, those Immortal Realm experts had prepared well with their best defense. When the electric current hit their light cages, only sparks were sent everywhere. They watched, their faces stern or excited. They even discussed with each other. Tu Shirchi, Yun, and Forefather Dragon Lizard were in this group too. They were ones of the warriors who had arrived first. Seeing the terrifying energy impact between Emperor Sea Shark and Forefather Dragon Lizard, Forefather Dragon Lizard became eager. The battle at the Territory Ancestor Realm isn't ordinary indeed. The Water World and the Thunderbolt World are real territories. They are above the incipient extent. They contain the essence of water power Upanishad and thunder, and lightning power Upanishad with dark energy as the source of energy. They're pretty close to reality. He wanted to use their battle to see the power of dark energy, which would help him break through to the Territory Ancestor Realm too. Feral's Thunderbolt territory slowly had continents created by lightning. They were complete continents. If low-realm warriors at the 3 minor god realms and the 3 major god realms cultivated there, they would gain the big benefits. To low-realm warriors, Feral's Thunderbolt continents were auspicious lands that they only dreamed of. At this moment, the 3 massive continents glowing in a dazzling light came out with grumbling thunder. On their way, they turned into the lightning balls and hit Emperor Sea Shark's water territory. Emperor Sea Shark's water territory consisted of immensely vast seas. The seas under the lightning attacks exploded and disappeared. However, they recovered fast. Emperor Sea Shark was in every sea in his water territory. With 2 crimson eyes, he grinned brutally. The water is unpredictable. It can be destroyed by slashing, hacking, or exploding it. You used a saber to cut the water. Do you think you can succeed? The number of bubbles was also the number of the small worlds inside the water territory. After they shattered, they came back right again. As the onlookers heard Emperor Sea Shark, they were scared. Until now, many people had thought that Feral was the strongest among the 3 territory ancestors in the Sea of Annihilation. They ranked Ricardo second and Emperor Sea Shark as the weakest. However, the battle today had turned everything upside down. They found that Emperor Sea Shark, who was always humble, wasn't weaker than Feral. He was even stronger somehow. Many of them had recognized it and thought, it's the seabed, deep down in the blue sea. Emperor Sea Shark cultivates water power Upanishad. He has natural support here. How could Feral deal with him at ease? At this moment, they were startled and recalled Emperor Sea Shark's power Upanishad. They thought it was reasonable that Emperor Sea Shark could gain the upper hand in this battle. The battle happened still. The field of broken stars. Shuryen sat like a rock statue for a long time. He didn't use the star power Upanishad anymore. He looked like he had been petrified. Meiji's worry swelled. Although they were very far away from the battle between Emperor Sea Shark and Feral, Meiji knew how furious the battle of the territory ancestors was through the sea water. She could confirm that the real experts of the Sea of Annihilation had all sensed the confrontation between the two more or less. Also, it had successfully attracted them. As Meiji was the leader in charge of the Phantom Clan in the Sea of Annihilation, she wasn't a fool. She knew why Emperor Sea Shark had decided to take action now and why he had to create such a great commotion just to attract the other experts. He wanted to give Shuryen more time to leave without being noticed or tagged along. What did the Emperor Sea Shark owe his teacher? To back up him leaving, he didn't hesitate to stand against the 5 clans. Is he crazy? Meiji was surprised. The more she tried to guess Emperor Sea Shark's plan, the more puzzled she became. She understood Emperor Sea Shark better than most people. After so many years, Emperor Sea Shark had been subtle and modest on the seabed. He rarely competed with anyone, and he didn't want an alliance with the 7 clans like Feral or Ricardo. He was a real hermit. But because of Shuryen, he had shown his fangs to show the world how formidable he actually was. Meiji believed that Emperor Sea Shark's deed had caught the attention of all experts. Also, she knew that whenever Shuryen got up, they could leave to Desolate territory safely. However, Shuryen had been quiet for a long time as if his soul was gone. Although she had sealed this area for the time being, if a real expert came, he could still recognize an abnormal situation. When she and Shuryen got exposed, they couldn't control the situation. What should I do now? Should I wake him up and tell him that Emperor Sea Shark's fighting against Feral to give him a chance to leave? Meiji struggled mentally and couldn't make up her mind. A sharp aura suddenly came. The other had even uttered something as if he had found the delicate seal in this area. Meiji was tense as she gritted her teeth. I have to wake him up. Her figure moved as she tried to use her soul consciousness to enter Shuryen's brain and awaken his consciousness. However, at this moment, a massive ice saber condensed above this illusion of ice and slashed downward. Meiji had used the ice crystal to create the illusion that had hidden her and Shuryen in the blind corner. Normal people couldn't find them, anyway. However, this random person happened to cultivate ice power Upanishad too. That's why he had curiously slashed the ice illusion to see what it hid. That saber had hacked them before Meiji's soul consciousness was sent to Shuryen. Crack! 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 The illusion of ice was attacked. It shattered like a mirror. Pieces of ice reflected a chaotic situation. A jet of starlight created by the star energy shot out of Shuryen's body. It acted as if it had its own consciousness. As soon as it was released, it was like a dragon soaring up into the sky or a caged beast that had suddenly escaped its imprisonment. Eagerly, it parried the ice saber. The ice saber broke and the jet of starlight turned into more beams of starlight. It was like a soul divided into dozens of wisps. The starlight beams transmitted angry screaming as they moved agilely like a bunch of snakes and coiled around a warrior. Chapter 1459. One gets through, all gets through. Chapter 1459. One gets through, all gets through. Shuryen had been quiet for a long time. Now, he opened his eyes and stood between the broken stars. He looked at the warriors tied by the starlight chains in the water above his head. He was a warrior cultivating ice power Upanishad at second sky of Immortal Realm. This man had the typical appearance of someone of the ancient monster clan. He was covered in thick fur. His hands were rough and large, and his face was like that of a ferocious beast. A strange and cold light sparkled in his eyes. You're that Yen. Ha ha ha. He stooped to see and couldn't help but laugh crazily. I've worn my shoes for nothing. And now, I got you without spending a bit of effort. Oh yeah? Are you really that happy? Meiji's attractive laughter resounded from the shade of a big rock. The warrior changed his face instantly as if he saw a ghost. He tried to jump and get rid of this area. He used to work as Hussein's guard for a while. He had witnessed Meiji beat Hussein up, which had almost ignited a war between the Phantom Clan and the Ancient Monster Clan. He knew that Meiji was cold and ruthless even though she looked sexy and seducing. She was really evil and her deeds were merciless, anyway. Seeing Meiji, his temples twinged. However, so many starlight chains coiling around him acted as if they had lives. He could even feel the resentful, angry, and brutal auras from them. After struggling for a while, he couldn't get rid of them. Yen stood on a rock underneath. He didn't look like he wanted to attack him, his face was puzzled. He didn't look up to see the man. A jet of starlight appeared on his fingertip. An invisible beam of light emitted from the host's soul and shined the galaxy in the tier of power Upanishads. The light of the host's soul seeped into the galaxy and continued to move to the sea of consciousness. A wisp of soul consciousness was released. That wisp of soul consciousness imprinted onto the starlight. Shortly after, that starlight seemed to have consciousness and a projection of his soul. A strange feeling reflected in his mind. The jet of starlight from his fingertip seemed to have another co-soul of his, a part of him. It had a mental connection with him, but it had an independent consciousness. It protectively left his fingertip and aimed at the Ancient Monster Clan warrior. Yen jolted up. The power Upanishad with a spirit. It was his power Upanishad that had a spirit. The ability of his power Upanishad now had a complete, independent consciousness. It became a miniature of the host soul that could proactively dodge the attack and find the enemy's weakness to kill him. It was a mysterious principle of the power Upanishad, using the host soul to chain the power Upanishad in the tier of power Upanishads and then connect it with the sea of consciousness. Yen had added his soul consciousness to his god power. The host soul, the power Upanishad, the sea of consciousness, and the god power had created a marvelous resonance, which made the power Upanishad get the aura of a soul instantly. Yen understood this magical principle now. When his thoughts changed, his power Upanishad switched. A red hand seal generated by the death power Upanishad flew out of his head and fell on that Ancient Monster Clan warrior. The red seal had complicated fingerprints that seemed alive with negative auras including bloodthirstiness, resentfulness, brutality, desperation, and fear. The negative auras had become the soul of death. It was dark, sinister, and cold, and it could release formidable waves of negative energies. Boom! The Ancient Monster Clan warrior screamed as his brain was shaken and invaded by the negative energies. His consciousness shattered. Space cross / Yen spoke calmly and changed his power Upanishad. A cross-like lightsaber appeared. It was created by a wisp of his soul consciousness. When his thoughts flickered, he was careful not to tear or distort the space as he was afraid of stimulating the space badly. The light space saber moved at a breakneck speed that the naked eyes could hardly observe. The cross saber disappeared all of a sudden. Then, the Ancient Monster Clan warrior's chest had a deep cross cut. The cut went through his body and shattered it. The death seal was carved on his forehead. The soul of death entered his soul altar and made it chaotic with the unconscious screaming of killing. Yen chuckled and mumbled to himself. One gets through and the rest follow through. I finally understand why Bloodthirsty had cultivated 8 great, evil power Upanishads at the same time, but he still reached the profound level. He understood it now. While he was in Desolate territory, more than one warrior told him that it would be much tougher to break through as he cultivated many power Upanishads at the same time and that he had to understand all the power Upanishads to reach a new realm. He believed it with not a single doubt. But he was also aghast. If it was true that there was no shortcut, what did Bloodthirsty do to cultivate soul control, death, corrosion, dark, chaos, destruction, desperate, and corpse-chi power Upanishads together with his devouring power at the same time? He had advanced very fast in desolate territory, and he had entered the territory ancestor realm quickly. What did he use? Did he have to understand all the abilities of the great evil powers and the devouring power Upanishads? How could he have enough energy to do that? If he didn't have anything magical, he should have been stuck in a low realm, right? But that didn't happen. It wasn't true that if one cultivated many power Upanishads at the same time, he had to comprehend each of his power Upanishads to enter a new realm. If he understood the principle of his power Upanishads, he could take the shortcut. Although there were so many power Upanishads in this world, they had some similar principles. For example, if the metal, wood, water, fire, and earth power Upanishads could transform into a world of 5 elements, they could create the 5 elements death traps inside that sealed world. The great evil power Upanishads belong to the negative, bloodthirsty category power Upanishads, so they shared some same principles. Also, the power Upanishad spirit that he had just comprehended could send a soul aura to the star, space, and death power Upanishads when he used their abilities. Space and star power Upanishads had the aura of his vitality, and the death power Upanishad was an evil, fearful one. Different spirits of the power Upanishads corresponded to the sunshine and darkness in his body. The aura of the star and the surging vitality were images of warmth, tolerance, and mercy in his soul. The sharp space power Upanishad represented his cutting edge, while the terrifying evil features of the death and devouring power Upanishad were projections of the most extremely negativeness in his soul. A person in different situations, different moods, and different times acted differently. Likewise, the soul aura created while cultivating different power Upanishads wasn't similar. It could magnify some aspect of the host's soul endlessly and imprint it on the power Upanishad to increase its power and the strength of the principle. Indeed, when he got one through, everything else could get through too. As he had comprehended this within the star power Upanishad, he also concluded that his space, death, and life power Upanishads could reach the same level. After understanding one principle, he had advanced all of his power Upanishads. Squinting, he observed the tragic death of the ancient monster clan warrior above his head and smiled. A black hole arose from the crown of his head. It opened like a mouth of a devil that swallowed the soul energy of that man. Inside that black hole was the most terrifying dark side of Shuryan's soul. It had the smell of a bloodthirsty desire, as if it was nibbling flesh and blood and melting that poor man's soul. Watch over me. I need to adjust my condition for a while. Then, I can enter second sky of immortal realm, said Shuryan. Meiji's eyes rippled a beautiful light as she swallowed her advice and answered him mildly. Okay. Dash. At a corner of the Sea of Annihilation, Minghao and the God Lord halted and squinted to sense the aura flowing with the sea water current. They were moved. Audrey's realm wasn't high enough. She frowned and didn't understand it. The experts are fighting on the seabed. Experts at the territory ancestor realm, reminded Minghong. Audrey was frightened. Is it because of Shuryan? Probably, Minghong thought, and then said, the power Upanishad symbol tower is very crucial. Unless it's the power Upanishad symbol tower, the territory ancestors won't join the battle personally. I want to go there and see, said Audrey resolutely. It's not a wise move, Minghong shook his head. We also want to go there and see. Minghao and the God Lord exchanged looks and made up their minds. It's a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity to see territory ancestors fight against each other. We've been stuck in this realm for a really long time. Perhaps we can learn something from this battle to break through to the territory ancestor realm. They don't know us, so they won't relate anything to us. We can go there and observe from a distance. We should check if it's Shuryan, and it's a good chance to improve our realms too. The God Lord said firmly, the experts in the Sea of Annihilation aren't really powerful. They're too weak and much lower than bloodthirsty. Perhaps the ones at the territory ancestor realm are considered the strong ones. I've swaggered in desolate territory for 20,000 years, and only bloodthirsty could defeat me. If I enter the territory ancestor realm, I'm confident that I can challenge each of the territory ancestors in the sea domain of nihility. We'll go there to open our minds and observe their competences. After I break through to the territory ancestor realm, I'm sure I will stir up the entire sea domain of nihility. Then, he stopped caring about Audrey and Minghao. He turned around and flew towards the battle site between Emperor Sea Shark and Feral. Minghao pondered for a while and then said, Audrey, your realm is too low. You shouldn't take risks. It's better that you find a safe place to hide. After I'm done with watching the battle, I will come and find you. I've left my aura on you to track you later. Minghao left resolutely. Audrey snorted. We should go, too. Do you really want to go? Minghao wasn't really willing to do that. If you don't want to go, I'm going there alone. Audrey pulled a cold face. All right, Minghao was begrudging. They followed Minghao and the God Lord and headed to the battle. They moved at their max speed. Just like a shadow wandering under the sea, they flashed and disappeared. Rumble. Rumble. Thunderbolts stirred the entire place. The seawater was furiously boiling. The entire sea area looked as if it was about to vanish. Many High Realm experts were observing the match from a far distance. They were awestruck and appraising Emperor Sea Shark, who looked modest but was actually fierce. Emperor Sea Shark had Feral in a bad situation. All of a sudden, many people in that group of onlookers were hit and they fell like bouncing rubber balls. A black cluster of souls had swaggered through the crowd and hurled the onlookers at the immortal realm away, creating a chaotic scene. Those who were thrown away were indignant. As they were about to scold or curse, they saw Neptune sit on the cluster of souls. Immediately, they shut their mouths and retreated. Chapter 1460. All Dreadful Devils Come. Chapter 1460. All Dreadful Devils Come. Many surrounding warriors watching the battle wanted to be foul-mouthed when they were swept away by the cluster of souls. However, because they saw Neptune, they didn't dare to say anything despite being indignant. Neptune was like a cluster of black souls hovering in midair. He sat neatly on a cloud of brutal souls and watched the battle between Emperor Sea Shark and Feral with a frown. He snorted and grabbed something. A giant ghostly claw created by his brutal souls grabbed a man at first sky of Immortal Realm. The ghostly claw dragged the man to Neptune. Freaked out, he screamed, Precursor Neptune, I didn't offend you. I always respected and admired the Soul Clan. Shut up, shouted Neptune. That man didn't dare to babble more and just shivered under the ghostly claw. Why did Emperor Sea Shark and Feral attack each other? Asked Neptune coldly. The man reacted and said, I don't know. Really, I don't know. They've been fighting when I came. Only the ghosts know why they fight. Ghosts? I don't like when people mention that word in front of me. Neptune's eyes had the dim and cold light. The massive claw squeezed and the man's body exploded. His blood splashed together with pieces of his flesh. Get lost. Just at first sky of Immortal Realm. Do you think you deserve to watch this battle? You don't treasure your life, scolded Neptune. After the warrior's body burst, his soul altar arose and fled helter-skelter. Neptune looked around. Each warrior in his line of sight ducked instinctively. They were very afraid that he would capture them. Among the territory ancestors of the 7 clans, Neptune was some sort of bipolar. He often attacked people without an excuse. Not many people dared to offend him or guess what he was thinking. They all tried to avoid him to prevent any unwelcome trouble. Who can tell me why Emperor Sea Shark and Feral are fighting each other? Neptune raised his voice, which was echoing like a ghost whispering into everybody's ears. They felt their hair rise and shivers send down their spines. At this moment, Emperor Sea Shark and Feral had tried their best to attack each other. The water territory and the thunderbolt territory impacted fiercely, which led to the collapse of the entire sea area. They weren't free to pay attention to anybody else. Of course, they didn't answer Neptune. Neptune looked around and found Tu Shirchi and his wife in the crowd. His face turned cold as he laughed evilly. I didn't think that you two would come to the Sea of Annihilation too. You two had joined hands with the others to kill Sing on Dragon Lizard Star, right? Ruthless light sparked in his eyes. Neptune shouted, Sing was a member of my soul clan. Although he was just a commander, he had borrowed my soul refining cauldron. He was my subordinate. You killed him. You didn't put me in your eyes, right? I will teach you a lesson instead of Han Tian. As Tu Shirchi and Yeyun first saw him, they had tried to sneak away as they were afraid that he would spot him. They couldn't ignore him. The old freak had seen them. Hearing him, Tu Shirchi and Yeyun had headaches. They knew that this freak would assault them. However, at this moment, an eccentric, archaic-looking old man appeared. He was lanky and his snow-white hand draped around his shoulder. The people in his way instinctively moved away when he passed through them. They were all scared. Ricardo! Ricardo! Ricardo is here! Ricardo was one of the 3 great territory ancestors of the Sea of Annihilation. He always worked alone. People rumored that he was related to the Black Demon clan, and he cultivated fire power Upanishad. He directly walked to Tu Shirchi and Yeyun. Glancing at Neptune, he said, "Do you think you're a bully when you attack them with your territory ancestor realm?" Pausing for a while, he continued indifferently. "Precursor Han Tian and I have met several times. I hope you will give me face to not attack the 2 of them." About Singh, he was at the peak of immortal realm. The battle between him and Tu Shirchi was fair. If he lost and died, he can't blame his opponent. Tu Shirchi and Yeyun were surprised. They hadn't expected that Ricardo would protect them. They knew Ricardo had a good friendship with the Black Demon clan, but he didn't have a relationship with the mysterious Sky clan. At the critical moment, Ricardo protected them as instructed by Han Tian a long time ago. He had helped them dodge this culpa. Neptune glared at Ricardo. After a while, he laughed evilly and darkly. "Then I will give you face, Ricardo. I hope that you will give me face when we talk about that thing later." "Well, I don't dare," replied Ricardo. Boom! Boom! The lightning continents exploded. Thunderbolts shot out rapidly, mashing Emperor Sea Shark's bubbles into pieces. Emperor Sea Shark was moving between his water worlds, his face ferocious and completely different from his usual, moderate self. His red eyes had a brutal fighting spirit, which surprised many people. Is he really Emperor Sea Shark? Totally different. So powerful. He must be 1 level stronger than Feral. We're in the Sea of Annihilation, and he cultivates water power Upanishad. Everybody discussed boisterously. Finally, they found that Emperor Sea Shark, the one who wasn't eye-catching, was probably the strongest between the 3 territory ancestors in the Sea of Annihilation. More warriors congregated, including Ming Hao and the God Lord. They stood quietly in a corner that concealed them within the crowd. They watched the battle between Emperor Sea Shark and Feral, their faces yearning naturally. "Oh, that's what I expected." The God Lord had fighting will inflame in his eyes. He recalled the fierce battle against Bloodthirsty that year. Yeah, they're worth the title Territory Ancestor. Although they aren't as strong as Bloodthirsty, their auras, yeah, it's not too different. Okay, I think we can get dark energy to break through to the Territory Ancestor realm too. Ming Hao wore a nonchalant face. When we get the right direction, we can do it without too much effort. Perhaps, not long after, the arena of the sea domain of nihility will turn to our amazing page. Right, I strongly believe it, confirmed the God Lord. More warriors were gathering from many places. The God Lord and Ming Hao didn't look outstanding, so they didn't draw the eyes of the concerned people. After a while, Chiemo of the Devouring Clan had brought his crew to this area. As soon as they came, they tried to ask for the reason why Emperor Sea Shark and Feral were fighting. Gradually, everybody all became bewildered. They didn't know why the 2 territory ancestors were fighting each other. They didn't see Shiryen or the power Upanishad symbol tower here. Everybody became concerned and looked around to find a trace. They must know why Emperor Sea Shark and Feral's battle was ignited to know who they should support. At the same time, in the area of broken stars, Shiryen opened his eyes and sensed the commotion sent through seawater. He said, "Emperor Sea Shark and Feral are battling against each other. Emperor Sea Shark treated you well. He provoked Feral and their battle caught everyone's attention. His purpose is obvious. He wants us to seize the chance and run away," reminded Meiji. Shiryen nodded, stood up, and said, "I know. That's why I said that I want to go back." Chapter 1461, Lord of All Stars. Chapter 1461, Lord of All Stars. Go back there. Meiji's body was stiff, her face panic-stricken. She screamed hoarsely, "Why do we have to go back there? Emperor Sea Shark is fighting feral to attract the others and give you a chance to escape. Why would you have to go back there?" "I've just reached second sky of Immortal Realm," explained Shiryen. "So what?" Meiji was surprised. "Normally, after I reach a new realm, I'm like a lake that was just dug deeper and became larger." No, the same thing happens to everybody," Shiryen rubbed his chin and said darkly. "I need to accumulate God power now. At our immortal realm, accumulating energy is a perpetual and painful process." Meiji nodded gently. She understood it clearly and she had experienced it before. From second sky to third sky of Immortal Realm, it took her almost 1,000 years to accumulate energy. And it didn't include the time needed to advance her power Upanishad. A warrior would reach the point to break through one day after accumulating enough energy. However, it depended on the warrior's condition and encounter to comprehend the power Upanishad. It didn't require only ascetic cultivation. If I don't have a cutting-edge method, I will need hundreds of years to fill the energy required to break through to third sky from second sky of Immortal Realm. Shiryen pulled an earnest face and shook his head. "I don't like ascetic cultivation, especially when I know the shortcut. If taking risks can shorten a lot of them, I'm willing to bet my life on it." Meiji understood it right away. "You want to use the devouring power Upanishad." Shiryen smiled, "Right? The devouring power Upanishad can shorten this energy accumulation a lot. The battle between Emperor Sea Shark and Feral will attract so many experts in the Sea of Annihilation. If chaos ensues and hundreds of Immortal Realm experts are killed, that energy will be enough for me to reach third sky of Immortal Realm." Meiji's eyes brightened. During this trip, she had observed and enjoyed the benefits given to her from Shiryen's devouring power Upanishad. Of course, she knew the mysteries of this evil powers. She believed in Shiryen's words. If hundreds of warriors at the Immortal Realm died, the dead essence chi from them would brim his god power ancient tree after being refined. Indeed, he didn't need to struggle and cultivate for a long time. "They want to find you. If you get back there, it's like stepping into a trap. You will fail Emperor Sea Shark too." Meiji was startled and she asked suspiciously, "Are you confident that you can return safely?" She knew that Shiryen wasn't a fool. He wouldn't do things he wasn't certain of. "After I reached second sky of Immortal Realm, I'm confident that I can always use the space power Upanishad to leave even on the seabed." Shiryen grinned and said arrogantly, "Although Minghao's realm is higher than mine, he's just in his soul form. He can't urge his energy to the utmost. Moreover, he can't endure the backfire. What he can't do, I can." A fantasy boundary stone sparkled in the palm of his hand. He sent the god power into the fantasy boundary stone. It inflated like a balloon. After 10 breaths, it became a world. It was a world of misty clouds. As soon as it emerged, it entered the broken star next to them, which normal people couldn't find or sense. This misty world was filled with Shiryen's space energy and soul consciousness, as if Shiryen's co-soul was there and controlled his power. "The cloudy world created by the fantasy boundary stone is controlled by my space energy and it has my soul imprint. This world can be here for a while. During this time, I can use my soul connection to hide in it any time and wherever I am on the seabed." Shiryen smiled and glanced at Meiji. His finger gestured and a space slit flared up. He grabbed Meiji by her hand and jumped into the space slit. After a flash, Shiryen and Meiji emerged in the misty world inside the broken star. Inside the immense clusters of clouds, Meiji's sleeves flew and made her look like a moon fairy. She raised one hand and covered her mouth. "Is it simple like this?" Shiryen smiled. A wisp of space energy flashed. He and Meiji returned to the area outside the rock. "Within a certain range in the Sea of Annihilation, I can enter that misty world in just a blink of an eye. Even experts like Emperor Sea Shark or Feral can never catch me if they don't know." Meiji smiled and admitted that he sounded logical. "You have an assurance to leave and not die. But can you ensure that you can leave after you have fished in the troubled water? When the experts at Neptune's level attack you, do you think you can endure one strike from them?" "Well, I couldn't before. But now, it's not a problem." "How are you so sure?" "I'll show you." Yen laughed arrogantly. He shot like a sword to the highest peak of this broken stars area. Shortly after, his body emitted starlight. He looked like a bright star, his eyes projecting so many strange and mysterious scenes of when a star lost its energy. Jets of starlight shot out from his 10 fingers like a galaxy falling on this broken star field, and entered each strange rock. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Magically, the mountain-like rocks slowly levitated. Under the control of the galaxy in his eyes, they floated up to the sky. Hundreds of thousands of rocks arose like imposing mountains, towering the seabed. This scene was so majestic and spectacular. While Yen's power Upanishad changed, the massive rocks began to move and radiate strange starlight. At first glance, it looked like thousands of twinkling stars were moving and showcasing the mysteries of the galaxy. Those rocks came from dozens of complete stars. Although they are all broken, they were intact a long time ago, so they have a connection. The stars also have spirit. They were tamed somehow. The spirit of those stars isn't like ours. Ordinary warriors can't sense it. But I can vaguely feel something. The massive rocks spun. Yen looked pensive and hovered between so many rocks. Broken pieces of stars, from now on, make me your master and I'll bestow you a paradise. A brilliant sea of stars emerged from Yen's head. It was a deep, velvet starry sky of a whole new world. It had stars, moons, and suns moving. Also, on the stars, there was surging vitality and fixation of death. It was his incipient extent. This incipient extent had gradually transformed into a territory due to dark energy. Many rocks in this area had the weak spirit of stars. After Yen had conjured his galaxy incipient extent, the connection between the rocks became stronger and pulled the rocks together. Slowly, tens of thousands of rocks piled up and turned into dozens of brilliant stars. The stars then flew up and entered Yen's incipient extent, becoming cold light dots, parts of the extent. Yen looked thrilled. He placed one hand on his forehead and the other on his chest. He pledged, "Wait until I've reached territory ancestor realm and my incipient extent turns into a territory. It will become a real galaxy. It's where you will stay. You will have creatures thriving on you. You will regain the glory you once had billions of years ago." Dozens of stars replied to him, still very weak. Only the warriors cultivating star power Upanishad could vaguely hear them. Meiji looked at the scene above her head in awe. She watched Yen, who was the lord of all stars in all skies, guiding so many mountain-like rocks to enter his brilliant galaxy incipient extent. She watched him make a pledge and connect subtly with the stars. She couldn't explain the thrill in her heart. Closing his eyes to sense for a while, Yen landed. At this moment, only a massive rock stood by Meiji, which contained the fantasy boundary stone. It was the only thing Yen had left to spare him an exit. He pondered and then said, "Billions of years ago, there were so many floating pieces of broken stars above the sea of annihilation. Someone cultivating star power Upanishad had tamed them and poured his star energy into them to control them and resist his enemies. Afterward, tens of thousands of broken stars had fallen into the sea. Those broken stars had a feeble spirit that only warriors cultivating star power Upanishad could recognize. I didn't know it before. While I was breaking through to second sky of a mortal realm and improving my realm, I vaguely understood it. Finally, I know that all the stars in this universe have the spirit. Some have a strong one and others have an imperceptible, feeble one. It's the sea of annihilation indeed. Its seabed has strange treasures everywhere. However, not anybody can recognize them. Sometimes, they can't even see the treasure right next to them. Those broken pieces of stars are even stronger than the intact stars in other areas. They have existed for a long, long time. Perhaps they were formed in the absolute beginning era. They know some secrets of earth and heaven. They have their own methods to refine themselves. Their makings are unique. That's why the expert cultivated star power Upanishad noticed them and refined them one more time to make them his weapons. Yen explained to her. Meiji partly understood and intervened. You don't need to give me a detailed explanation. I don't cultivate star power Upanishad. It's hard to understand it thoroughly. I only need to know one thing. After you collect those broken rocks into your incipient extent, does your power increase altogether? Will they be your divine weapon to resist the territory ancestors' attacks? Shiryen smiled. Yeah, you're right. Oh, it's okay. Meiji was resolute and pulled his shoulder. I'm going back with you. I'll come to the dragon's pond or the tiger's den with you this time. Shiryen felt warm. He clutched her hands, his eyes complicated. Actually, until now, I don't have a true. Don't say that. Meiji raised her hand and placed a finger on his lips. With a pair of watery eyes, she shook her head. There's something I don't want to hear. Agree with me. Never tell me words that will hurt me. Even if you are lying to me, as long as it's sweet, just tell me. Shiryen was amazed. Meiji stooped her head. I don't know what happened to me. Perhaps it's the common disease of our Phantom Clan women. We don't easily fall in love. But once we do, we'll be like a moth heading to a flame. Even though we know we're going to die, we won't regret it. Who knows the future? I can't say if I can survive and go to desolate territory with you. I just hope that while we are together, you will be sweet to me, even if you have to lie to me. Anything is okay. Just don't break my heart. Shiryen couldn't reply. Sigma_. Support me at Patreon.com/Sigma_Sama. Donate at PayPal. Me/Sigma_Sama https://streamlabs.com/Sigma_7. Vote. Let's make top 10 again. Mass release if GS reach top 10 at the end of the month. Chapter 1462, Free Fight. Chapter 1462, Free Fight _ Deep in the sea. Silhouettes like gloomy ghosts appeared in every corner of the sea. They looked frightened or excited. Their eyes were fixed on two light domes. The collision between the Thunderbolt territory and the water territory almost shattered the seabed. Many fine space cracks appeared and extended, which many immortal realm experts had to move away instinctively. No one knew where those space slits led to. At their realm, they didn't dare to jump in. Neptune and Ricardo wore stern faces and stood in the crowd. They continuously mended those cracks and slits to stabilize the shattering sea area. Rumble. Rumble. So many lightning continents inside the Thunderbolt territory blasted. Whenever a continent disappeared, Farrell's eyes sparkled. The thick aura in his Thunderbolt territory gradually weakened. Quite the contrary, Emperor Sea Shark became more excited the more he fought. His red eyes and brutal aura were completely different from his regular humble, modest appearance. Many people felt as if it was the first time they knew Emperor Sea Shark. This battle spread Emperor Sea Shark's reputation around the entire sea domain of nihility. Many years later, warriors talked about this character and his intimidating merit in the Sea of Annihilation. Innumerable water curtains were multiplied in Emperor Sea Shark's water territory and gushed into Farrell's Thunderbolt territory. Water shrouded each lightning ball and squeezed them into powder. Farrell was scared. He finally knew that self-effacing Emperor Sea Shark wasn't a weak expert he could bully. He regretted it now. He shouldn't have provoked him. The Sea of Annihilation is a marvelous place, indeed. Minghao and the God Lord were standing far from the battle. Minghao's eyes were gloomy as he observed the space cracks around. If this kind of battle takes place in our desolate territory, it will break many star areas. The space can't even endure a battle between the immortal realm experts like us. But this seabed just had some small cracks. Minghao's attainment in space power Upanishad was extremely profound. He was at the Grandmaster level, indeed. He knew the regular world couldn't endure a confrontation between the real experts. Emperor Sea Shark and Farrell were the territory ancestors. The shockwaves of their battle could make the desolate territory collapse on a large scale. But in here, the seabed had only some small cracks. Minghao considered and then said, "It seems like the sea area here can endure the pulling force of space energy without shattering. Unfortunately, my soul form can't endure the backfire of tearing space. Otherwise, we could have tried once." Boom. 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 So many lightning balls exploded and vanished within Farrell's territory. Gradually, his territory was reduced and Farrell had to back off. Shortly after, many lightning balls congregated and created a tremendously terrifying light ball. Feral roared and thundered inside that light ball. All of a sudden, he tore the ball and flew out. His face twisted in pain. Deep in his eyes, so many lightning pythons were moving. Emperor Sea Shark. Emperor Sea Shark's eyes were still crimson. He looked shocked before he could resume his sound mind. His eyes moved around as if he was searching for someone in the crowd, his face bewildered. "Feral. What happened?" cried Ricardo. "Emperor Sea Shark," called Neptune. "I found Shiryen. I was about to capture him. Emperor Sea Shark had stopped me. I don't know what he thought. He had shooed that kid away," bellowed Feral. So many lightning balls hovering in the water emitted a dazzling light of lightning while he was talking. "Emperor Sea Shark, is it true?" Neptune was surprised. "You've agreed with me to help me find that kid. Is it your right attitude?" Ricardo, Tushar Chi, and Chiemo were bewildered. They didn't know the reason, so they turned to Emperor Sea Shark with a questioning face. The blood-red hue in Emperor Sea Shark's eyes remained. It hadn't vanished yet. He still looked puzzled and looked for something in the crowd. A flame ignited. Emperor Sea Shark's eyes suddenly brightened and screamed, "Shinren." While Emperor Sea Shark and Feral were fighting, Shinren had disappeared mysteriously. And now, he reappeared inside that flickering flame. The seashell he hid his body in had so many flames piling up on each other. As soon as he appeared, he said resolutely, "We must go now." Neptune and Ricardo had finally come. He also knew Emperor Sea Shark's plan of fighting Feral for a while to draw people's attention. He was the one who understood Emperor Sea Shark the most. He was like his shadow, in fact. He understood that once Neptune and Ricardo came, they would look for him and force him to tell the reason for the battle. Thus, he had to hide. Before Emperor Sea Shark and Feral parted from the battle, he had to not show himself. And now, it's time to reappear. He needed to remind Emperor Sea Shark that he shouldn't stand against the warriors of the entire Sea of Annihilation alone. Hearing him, Emperor Sea Shark chuckled and nodded, "Right. We should leave. I'm not going to lose myself in this." The clouds of souls appeared by Emperor Sea Shark. Neptune wore a cold and stern face. "Emperor Sea Shark, I think you owe me an explanation." Ricardo also stepped forward and frowned. "I've agreed with someone to capture a kid named Shiryen." "Emperor Sea Shark, I need a proper answer." Tushar Chi, Chiemo, and many experts hiding far away also moved closer. They barricaded Emperor Sea Shark. No one had come with a goodwill. They demanded Emperor Sea Shark to show where Shiryen had gone. Many smart people got the hint that Emperor Sea Shark had let Shiryen go from Feral's words. And Emperor Sea Shark had even fought with Feral to seize more time for him and attract the others. They understood that Emperor Sea Shark wanted to protect Shiryen. They doubted that Shiryen and Emperor Sea Shark had some secret agreement and his knowledge of where Shiryen had gone. Emperor Sea Shark released Shiryen. The God Lord was amazed and shook his head. "I can't believe it! That kid is always weird." Many unbelievable things could happen to him. Minghao frowned. "It seems like he left safely." "It's good then." Audrey was approaching from a far distance. Hearing them, she cheered up. "Retreat." "No!" Minghong screamed from her shoulder. "Forefather Dragon Lizard, Tushar Chi, and even that demon Neptune are here. If they find you, it'll be a lot of trouble." Audrey was startled. She immediately reacted and flew away without pausing. However, at this moment, Neptune's eyelid twitched. His deep look pierced through hundreds of warriors and fell on Audrey precisely. He licked his lip and mumbled, "Sing's brutal souls." "Interesting. The brutal souls of our clan's commander now benefit someone else." A dozen-meter-tall, jet-black brutal soul that looked both like a bear and a lion appeared under Neptune's feet. That brutal soul roared and turned into a band of dim light, shooting toward Audrey. "Not good. That demon has sensed you from such a far distance." Minghong felt his scalp numb. He urged, "Leave at your max speed." Audrey paled. As she saw the massive brutal soul coming, her soul shivered. Her realm was very different from Neptune's. The energy of one of his Neptune's brutal soul wasn't someone she could cope with. Minghong also felt restless when the brutal soul came. He was also a brutal soul, but he was refined by Sing. He couldn't resist a brutal soul made by Neptune at the territory ancestor realm. Air? Ming Hao could feel the commotion from the aura he had left on Audrey. He sensed and discolored. His soul form disappeared abruptly. Swoosh! Ming Hao approached Audrey and looked at Neptune's brutal soul. He sneered and grabbed it. A space crack appeared next to him and turned into a strange blade. He grabbed it. Ming Hao rose the blade and slashed. Neptune's brutal soul screeched as it was halved. However, the brutal soul wasn't a real entity. After it was halved, it could still scream and showcase its savagery. Now, its target was Ming Hao. Neptune was numb and his face was extremely dark. He turned to look at Ming Hao, Ming Hong, and Audrey. Low creatures. You don't know how high the sky is. Dare resist me. Court death. The sea of souls underneath him sent out another brutal soul. It was a green serpent around hundreds of meters long. It had a thick acid aura. The stinky mouth of the snake had so many fangs. It had swallowed some warriors while it slithered on its way. Those victims perished instantly. What? The God Lord suddenly recognized that Ming Hao had disappeared while he was watching Emperor Sea Shark and Feral. Turning around, he saw Ming Hao fighting Neptune's brutal soul. He was surprised. Hesitating, he stood still. He didn't want to get involved. Let's go. Shun Ren seized the opportunity and shouted. Emperor Sea Shark didn't know Audrey, so he wouldn't help her. Seeing that they had caught Neptune's attention, he nodded and released waves to get rid of the crowd. Don't let him escape, shouted Feral. He didn't need to say so as Ricardo, GMO, and many onlookers had taken action instinctively. In just a blink of an eye, the seabed became brilliant with so many light curtains, halos, and blocks. The barriers of different energies were cast. The sharp power shot and gashed the seabed. The whole scene was hustling and bustling. The warriors who had the guts to watch the battle between the two territory ancestors had profound realms and cultivation bases. Many of them were related to the 7 clans, while some of them were here because of the Power Upanishad symbol tower. Whether it was because of the rewards from the 5 clans or the Power Upanishad symbol tower, they wanted to know Shi Yan's whereabouts. Thus, they all took action. Emperor Sea Shark, after this battle, no matter how the result turns out, you won't have a decent place to stay in the sea domain of nihility. The members of the Soul Clan, Devouring Clan, Ancient Monster Clan, Black Demon Clan, and Mysterious Sky Clan won't let you go. Their core members were killed and you released that kid. You have to bear the consequences. Ricardo sighed and spoke emotionally. Chapter 1463, Exposed One by One. Chapter 1463, Exposed One by One, _ Billions of colorful flames flew out from Ricardo's body. They arrayed into a natural formation automatically. Those flames weren't afraid of water. They were like countless bright lamps flying toward Emperor Sea Shark. Feral didn't say a word before he took action one more time. The lightning balls were condensed and they fell grumblingly on Emperor Sea Shark. Neptune snorted and raised one hand. 3 brutal souls emerged like giant demons floating in the air, each of them several thousand meters tall. These 3 giant brutal souls were his true lethal attack. Ricardo, Feral, and Neptune took action at the same time to block Emperor Sea Shark. They wanted to figure out Shi Yan's whereabouts from him. To any clan, the Power Upanishad symbol tower was the top treasure that they dreamed for. It was even more precious than an absolute beginning divine weapon. For the Power Upanishad symbol tower, they had ignored the fact that Emperor Sea Shark was also a territory ancestor. Even if they had to destroy the entire Sea of Annihilation, they had to find Shi Yan to get the Power Upanishad symbol tower from him. Audrey! It's Audrey! Yun screamed in the crowd. 2 Shi and Forefather Dragon Lizard looked at her from a distance. They were surprised as they recognized that Neptune's brutal souls' attack were at Audrey. They knew that after Audrey had parted with them, she would find Shi Yan. Seeing Audrey, they thought Shi Yan was around too. As the others were screaming, 2 Shi, Yun, and Forefather Dragon Lizard had plunged toward Audrey and left Emperor Sea Shark behind. She has a close relationship with Shi Yan. What do you want to do? Forefather Dragon Lizard asked all of a sudden. Tu Shirchi and Yayun were hesitant. Pondering for a while, Yayun said, "Take her. We can use her to negotiate with Shiryen, can't we? We can actually help her and save her from being killed by Neptune's brutal souls," said Tu Shirchi. Forefather Dragon Lizard nodded. "It's good then." When they came and were about to take action, they found that Ming Hao had single-handedly stopped 2 brutal souls released by Neptune. Ming Hao's clones held space sabers and forcefully resisted against 2 brutal souls. Ming Hao in his soul form flashed and disappeared. Then, another warrior at the immortal realm near him suddenly screamed crazily and attacked Neptune's brutal souls. Forefather Dragon Lizard and the others were awed. How could he occupy the other's soul that quickly? Who is he? He must be an expert cultivating soul control power Upanishad from the Devouring Clan. I heard that the experts cultivating soul control power Upanishad could enter the soul of lower realm warriors to distort their minds and enslave them, Tu Shirchi said with a stern face, his eyes strange. I can't relate that little girl Audrey to the Devouring Clan. Oh hey, it's not true. The soul form of that expert isn't something that the Devouring Clan has mastered. It's somehow similar to the Soul Clan. TSK? It's complicated. Yayun was bewildered. She halted and didn't know what to do. As the soul control chief of the bloodthirsty force, Ming Hao had mastered the power Upanishad of the Imperial Dark Tribe and the supernatural abilities of mind control of the bloodthirsty force. He also had the power of space. After 10,000 years of cultivating and merging the 3 power Upanishads perfectly, he had reached 3rd sky of Immortal Realm. As long as he had dark energy, he could enter the territory ancestor realm safely. Today, in the Sea of Annihilation, he had performed his real capacity. Countless clone souls of his had occupied 15 experts at the Immortal Realm and enslaved them. He controlled them to take self-destructive attacks to Neptune's brutal souls. It had greatly shocked many people. Even the warriors surrounding Emperor Sea Shark had discolored in fear. They were aghast when they saw Neptune's 2 brutal souls get destroyed by the exploded souls. Neptune had so many wisps of soul filaments in his head, several were cut off. He winced and turned to Ming Hao. He shouted, "Devouring Clan's soul control power Upanishad." GMO and the warriors of the Devouring Clan heard Neptune shouting. They were frightened as they turned to look at Ming Hao. "He's not a member of our Devouring Clan." GMO cultivated chaos power Upanishad. Around him was a strange magnetic field that made the water twisted inside so many mirrors, which looked so strange. As he was fighting Emperor Sea Shark, he suddenly recalled something, yelling, "He's from Desolate Territory." Desolate Territory. People from Desolate Territory. The territory created by Desolate, the absolute beginning creature. It's so unexpected. Many warriors surrounding screamed in astonishment. Tu Shirchi and Yayun exchanged looks. They saw fear in each other's eyes. They knew that Audrey and Shiryen came from Desolate Territory. Hearing GMO exposing Ming Hao's identity, they were startled. They recalled that Han Tian used to tell them about Bloodthirsty. Just like Bloodthirsty, they are lucky ones who received Devour's inheritance in Desolate Territory. Their understanding of the 8 great evil powers is more complete than the Devouring Clan itself. It's just that their realms are a little low. Tu Shirchi turned to Forefather Dragon Lizard. Many years ago, an expert from Desolate Territory called Bloodthirsty had come to our place. He had risen the bloody rain and killed so many members of the Devouring Clan. Our forefather Han Tian used to battle against him. He was defeated. Bloodthirsty had mastered Devouring Power Upanishad and the 8 great evil power Upanishads of the Devouring Clan. He was extremely fierce. Precursor Han Tian was defeated? Dragon Lizard was frightened. Precursor Han Tian's one of the Great 10 Territory ancestors. How intimidating was Bloodthirsty? Shiryen and Audrey come from Desolate Territory, and so does that expert with the soul control power Upanishad. He has mastered the soul control power Upanishad. Perhaps he's related to Bloodthirsty. It's strange, indeed. Tu Shirchi muttered, his eyes suddenly brightened as he looked at Emperor Sea Shark, his face strange. What do you have in mind? Yayun exhaled. Do you remember what forefather Han Tian had told us that year? He said that Emperor Sea Shark used to guide Bloodthirsty on the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation. That Bloodthirsty suddenly appeared on the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation out of nowhere. He didn't know anything and he was curious about everything. He met Emperor Sea Shark when he was still weak and he had forced Emperor Sea Shark to guide him. Yeah, I remember Forefather Han Tian telling us about that. However, Bloodthirsty had disappeared for a long time. I didn't really think about it. What do you mean? Why does Emperor Sea Shark suddenly want to protect Shiryen? Only the ghosts know. Perhaps it's related to Bloodthirsty. You mean Emperor Sea Shark knows that Shiryen and Bloodthirsty are related, and he is protecting Shiryen because of this relationship? I'm just guessing. Forefather Dragon Lizard listened to Tu Shirchi and Yayan's conservation. He was bewildered and fearful. Seeing Ming Hao move around and seize the souls of many experts to detonate Neptune's brutal soul, his scalp felt numb. That man is really strong. Even if my true body is here, I'm not sure if I can match him. People from Desolate Territory. Chiemo suddenly cried and ignored Emperor Sea Shark. He stormed toward Ming Hao. Tell me the location of the entrance to Desolate Territory, and I'll spare your life. Our devouring clan wants to go to Desolate Territory to find our ancestors' inheritance. The devouring clan warriors aimed at Ming Hao under Chiemo's direction. Legends say that Desolate had battled against Devour, and it was broken into several pieces. If we can enter Desolate Territory and swallow Desolate's parts, we'll reach a level that no one could imagine. We will know the secrets of Absolute Beginning Era and the principles of Power Upanishads. I heard that Desolate still has 2 Absolute Beginning Divine weapons. If we enter Desolate Territory, we will be filthy rich. Of course. Many people screamed and cried. They were stirred up. When they looked at Ming Hao, they were like hungry men looking at a naked beauty with bright eyes. Desolate Territory's resident. He's also from Desolate Territory. Emperor Sea Shark screamed inwardly. He used to accompany Bloodthirsty for a while, so he knew Bloodthirsty came from Desolate Territory. From Ming Hao's soul control power Upanishad, he guessed that Ming Hao had a close relationship with Bloodthirsty too. Emperor Sea Shark wanted to leave, but he became hesitant all of a sudden. He wanted to grab Ming Hao and ask for more details. While he was terrified, Ricardo and Farrell attacked him more furiously. The others who were fishing in troubled water also tried their best attacks. The entire place was filled with blast, fire, ice, and crystals. The pressure had almost shattered the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation. Ricardo's fire territory had evaporated the water and emptied the area. After fighting fiercely for a long time against Farrell, Emperor Sea Shark wasn't in a good condition. He was struck. Countless bubbles in his water territory erupted. Emperor Sea Shark's eyelids twitched, his face pale. He tried to swallow the blood that had churned in his throat. We don't care if they're related to our benefactor. We must leave first. We can't handle that much. When Shen Ten saw Emperor Sea Shark's strange expression, he knew that it wasn't going well. He screamed hastily. He continually released a fire shield in front of Emperor Sea Shark's water territory. However, Ricardo's fire, which was more profound than his, had stopped him. He was hit and his energy was quickly drained. Emperor Sea Shark, I don't want to go against you. I need you to tell me Shiryan's whereabouts. What I want is the Power Upanishad Symbol Tower. I don't need your life, Emperor Sea Shark. Ricardo was calm, flames rolling on his body like layers of armor. Billions of flames swarmed toward Emperor Sea Shark and the sea water evaporated, creating a vacuum area on the seabed. Farrell grinned fiendishly in that vacuum area and entangled Emperor Sea Shark with his exploding lightning balls. Ricardo, you joined Farrell, but you guys can't stop me. Do you believe that? Emperor Sea Shark's eyes turned crimson once again. Ricardo was bewildered and looked troubled too. If you want to risk your life, Farrell, and I can't stop you. But I'm sure you know the price that you will have to pay. If I support Ricardo and Farrell, will you leave easily as you said? Neptune intervened. The 3 brutal souls hadn't moved. However, his other 2 souls were shattered when Ming Hao used his soul control power Upanishad to force his slaves to detonate their soul altars. Neptune didn't attack further because he had to save some tricks. He pitched his voice and bellowed, "Badi." An average-looking human warrior in the crowd suddenly shrank until he was around 1 meter tall. He was an ominous and extremely ugly dwarf. He had a green-brown face with spooky green eyes. He suddenly flew toward Audrey and Minghao. Forefather Earth Ghoul, Forefather Dragon Lizard, and Tu Shurchi screamed at the same time. The three of them had suffered from that Earth Ghoul. Seeing him, they were indignant and frightened. Their eyes turned red when they saw their archenemy. Chapter 1464, Return. Chapter 1464, Return. Underscore in the Sea of Annihilation, Forefather Ba-Di of the Earth Ghoul tribe was infamous. He was the current chief of the Earth Ghoul tribe. He had made his tribe thrive from a small tribe to a second-class one. Ba-Di had used his personal power to grow an entire Earth Ghoul tribe. He was mighty and treacherous. Long time ago, he was just an ordinary warrior of the Earth Ghoul tribe with a pathetically low realm. However, he had encountered an expert of the Soul Clan who was traveling around. He had tried his best to serve him and become his dog for thousands of years. Eventually, that man reached the Territory Ancestor realm, and he was like a boat rising with the rising tide. Ba-Di had used his loyalty to gain approval from the Soul Clan. After Serene Prison, the one he had served, had reached the Territory Ancestor realm, he had imparted Ba-Di the power Upanishad of the Soul Clan. No one had thought that Ba-Di could cultivate decently. Anyway, Ba-Di had used the low-level power Upanishad of the Soul Clan bestowed by Serene Prison to thrive quickly. He had suddenly accelerated, and he had made progress much faster than many experts of the Soul Clan. However, after he had reached the peak of Immortal Realm, he got stuck. The Soul Clan also appreciated Ba-Di. They were surprised at his outstanding performance. Under Serene Prison's protection, Forefather Earth Ghoul had imparted the power Upanishad to the other members of Earth Ghoul tribe. He had strengthened his fellows and made his clan strong enough to rival the Dragon Lizard clan. After many years, Serene Prison had become the high-echelon expert of the Soul Clan, one of 10 great territory ancestors in the sea domain of nihility. His subordinate, Forefather Earth Ghoul, also had a high position. As the chief of Earth Ghoul tribe, he had made his clan outstanding among the other vassals of the Soul Clan. Today, Ba-Di was hiding in the Sea of Annihilation seabed like a ghost. Also, he had responded to Neptune's call. Ba-Di was short and ugly like a dwarf. After Neptune had called him, he swayed several times to reach Minghao. Wahaha. Interesting. Come and possess my soul, will you? He screamed. Wisps of ghostly mist that emitted from his back were carrying resentful souls and becoming a stinky tongue. The tongue moved, coiling and drawing one of Minghao's clones. An extreme, resentful aura shot out from that tongue, which froze Minghao's clone. Each of Minghao's clones was frightened as if they were also coiled by the tongue. They turned to face Forefather Earth Ghoul. This freak is getting stronger. Even if my true body comes, I'm not sure if I can catch him, Dragon Lizard observed, his face stern. I can't deny that this Ba-Di is really good at cultivating evil techniques. He's such a rare talent who can cultivate a low-level power Upanishad of the Soul Clan to this level. He has followed a good master. Serene Prison is one of the great 10 territory ancestors. His echelon is higher than Neptune's in the Soul Clan. Serene Prison has the right to read all the records of profound techniques and power Upanishads of the Soul Clan. He has cared about Ba-Di enough to teach him the meaning of power. Tu Shurchi also wore a heavy countenance. If Ba-Di hadn't helped Sing, how could he have wounded us? From some aspect, Ba-Di is tougher than Sing. He has served Serene Prison for many years. He had the chance to contact many experts. Sing can't compare to him in terms of knowledge and vision. Old man, what should we do? Yeah, Ayun gritted her teeth. Wait. We should wait for a while. When Neptune is busy, we'll attack Ba-Di. This midget used to ambush us near Dragon Lizard Star. We must repay his favor, said Tu Shurchi resolutely. Yayun's eyes brightened. Boom. Boom. Thunder continued to boom. The burning flames swarmed toward Emperor Sea Shark. 3 majestic brutal souls with many limbs were roaring, howling, and tearing Emperor Sea Shark's water curtain. Emperor Sea Shark looked exhausted, but his eyes were still fearfully red. He was about to fall into insanity. You should never lose your mind. We must try our best to get out of here. Shinran calmly reminded him outside his water territory. He had to prevent Emperor Sea Shark from falling into frantic bewilderment. It was the reason why he persistently stayed. Many years ago, when Bloodthirsty taught Emperor Sea Shark the Rampage technique, he had advised that this power was going to be very harmful to him since he didn't cultivate one of the 8 great, evil power Upanishads. Emperor Sea Shark had to only use it to save his life at a critical moment. Bloodthirsty also said that this power required life energy to activate, which would make the user fall into bedevilment easily. If his mind wasn't firm enough, he was going to turn into a killing machine that only stopped after it used the last beam of God power. And when it stopped, death was going to come. Shenron was there. He had listened to Bloodthirsty clearly. Emperor Sea Shark had used this power to defeat many experts. Shenron had observed, and he understood the advantages and disadvantages of this power deeply. Emperor Sea Shark. You can't escape, shouted Feral crazily. The rolling lightning strikes connected earth and heaven. They grumblingly descended and made the entire place a field of lighting bolts, stringing and breaking around. Emperor Sea Shark was shaken. So many bubbles and water curtains in his water territory shattered. He couldn't stop blood from churning in his throat. At this moment, dark blood appeared on his abdomen. When he saw blood, Emperor Sea Shark became wilder. It had triggered his brutal nature and made his aura more frantic. He couldn't hear Shenren's voice anymore. Shenren watched him, his face grimaced and his heart sinking. He knew what he worried the most about had happened. He couldn't stop it. Emperor Sea Shark has fallen into bedevilment. The energy fluctuations from the battle are fierce and powerful. Although we're very far from them, the water current has become turbulent. I'm sure the battle is very furious. Meiji's beautiful eyes were full of surprise. She began to worry because of Shuryan's decision. She guessed that Emperor Sea Shark's battle over there was really chaotic. Inside the starlight cage, Shuryan was still calm. Audrey and the others are there too. How do you know that? Audrey and the God Lord have fused with the clone souls of Desolate. They all have a subtle connection with my co-soul. As long as they aren't too far from me, we can detect each other. They are over there. Really marvelous. Shuryan and Meiji were talking while the starlight cage zoomed over like a fast meteor. It flashed and disappeared on the seabed. Boom. A red-orange jet of light shot over and hit their starlight protection. The starlight cage bloomed with beautiful light. Shuryan's eyes brightened. The aura of Immortal Realm experts. Oh, yeah. All of them are at Immortal Realm. Interesting. If more die, my God power will be filled abundantly. With the premise that we can leave alive. You must pay attention, Meiji smiled and reminded him. Don't worry. If I dare to come back, of course, I can leave safely. Shuryan guffawed, his large hand slapping Meiji's beautiful, ample bosom. We can only seek for wealth in danger. I've created miracles lately because I always wander around chaotic areas. Wherever I go, even if it's calm and peaceful, I will stir it up and start a bloody rain. Only blood and death creates me, a miracle. Haha, the Sea of Annihilation is a good place to train me. We're going there to earn more energy to fill our God power. Meiji was charmed by his hand that was rubbing her rear end and his powerful voice. She lewdly shook her beautiful buttocks. She proactively pressed her voluptuous breasts against his arm and smiled charmingly. I'm waiting for you to give me more energy. You little slut, Shuryan was aroused. He couldn't help but curse smilingly. I'll feed you well. With you, I'm willing to die. Meiji raised her succulent lips to meet his passionately. She hated that she couldn't merge her body with his body. Don't worry. I'm going to let you die several times. But it's not the death that you mentioned. Shuryan said through his gritted teeth. I'm yearning desperately, smiled Meiji. Sizzle. Sizzle. Minghao's clones turned into many gray jets of airs. Another clone was destroyed. Wahaha. Not bad. Not bad. The devouring clan's soul control power Upanishad is really subtle. But you're not dealing with only me. You can't run away. Forefather Earth Ghoul Ba Di grinned. Chaotic magnetic field. Chi Emo shouted coldly. Dozens of clones of Ming Hao suddenly twisted, as if someone had grabbed them and forcefully deformed them. They flickered as if they were about to vanish. The members of the devouring clan under his command also attacked Ming Hao's clones fiercely. After Ming Hao had forced many warriors to self-detonate to attack Neptune's brutal souls, the other weak warriors ran away to prevent Ming Hao from using them. Thus, Ming Hao could only use his clones to fight. However, the clones were just clones. He couldn't gain the upper hand in a fight against an expert at the same realm. Soul Control Chief Ming Hao looked weak under the besiege of Neptune's brutal souls, Forefather Earth Ghoul Ba Di, and Chi Mo's team. However, his performance had surprised the warriors of the Sea of Annihilation. Ming Hao was at third sky of Immortal Realm, and he hadn't reached the peak level yet. However, he had wounded 2 brutal souls and forcefully resisted Ba Di at the peak of Immortal Realm and Chi Mo's team. This man's intimidation was unimaginable indeed. How could warriors from Desolate territory be so fierce? Desolate territory is just a territory. How do they have such a formidable expert? It's the territory that Desolate had created. It's really archaic. It should be magical, anyway. It's incredible. If we can find Desolate territory and refine Desolate's detached body parts, we will enter the territory ancestor realm instantly. We will even become one of the 10 great territory ancestors. I think so. The onlookers discussed boisterously. They were frightened when they saw Ming Hao's performance. They recognized that the warriors from Desolate territory were very fierce and not weaker than experts in their Sea of Annihilation. Chapter 1465, Wage War Everywhere. Chapter 1465, Wage War Everywhere. God Flame sets a prairie ablaze. Ricardo's host's soul arose from his territory as a god of fire shooting flames everywhere. Those flames had many colors. They were scorching and fiery with the yang power. They burned Emperor Sea Shark's water curtains. A soul flame changed inside that fire territory. Many wisps of soul consciousness mixed with dark energy were sprayed everywhere. The entire sky was covered with a rain of fire. Fire shrouded the area and flaming fluids flooded Emperor Sea Shark's territory. Take the chance when he's perplexed to drain his life energy. Feral sneered. So many lightning balls as big as mountains were swirling and sending out broken, shattering waves of energy. Neptune snorted. 3 brutal souls were like an eternal demogorgon that roared and tore a water curtain. They ripped through Emperor Sea Shark's water territory. Emperor Sea Shark spurted blood as he was exhausted. Shinren stood by him, shouting and trying to stop him. Do you think you are qualified to interrupt a battle between territory ancestors? Get lost. Feral sneered and squeezed his fist. Thunder reverberated and lightning bolts fell. Boom, boom, boom. Shinren's body was wounded and bleeding badly when he was kicked out of Emperor Sea Shark's water territory. His eyes turned blank. No! Emperor Sea Shark shrieked, his voice echoing through the entire Sea of Annihilation. Countless crystal-clear drops like tears fell from his eyes. Those water drops looked like they were made of crystal. After each drop fell into the sea, the water pressure increased dozens of times. Boop, boop, boop. Many low-realm warriors couldn't endure the formidable water pressure, and their bodies exploded. Soul altars flew out of their shattered bodies. The souls hovering on the soul altars were aghast, wailing and screeching as they saw the bloody mess of their bodies. Their voices were like sounds of crying ghosts, which raised the hair on people's napes. Most of them were at first sky of Immortal Realm or had just entered the Immortal Realm. Their realms weren't stable yet. Go! Minghong, the brutal soul, had covered Audrey to protect her from the pressure and pulled her out of here. Brian, screamed Ming Hao. While screaming, 12 of Ming Hao's clones exploded. Forefather Earth Ghoul and Chiemo had destroyed them. Not far from them, the God Lord crossed his hands in front of his chest, watching and doing nothing. At this moment, as the God Lord heard Ming Hao's call, he didn't look like he was willing to respond. He hesitated when he had to look from the battle between Emperor Sea Shark, Feral, Neptune, and Ricardo. He closed his eyes, and when he opened his eyes again, pure and holy light bloomed. The God Lord was like the bright moon in the velvet, starry sky. Stepping on a light road, he grabbed Chiemo. The powers of 5 elements turned into a holy, 5-colored light curtain, which covered Chiemo. The God Lord wore a cold face and said faintly, "Chaos Power Upanishad." Gru also cultivated Chaos Power Upanishad. He died tragically anyway. You're not as strong as Gru. If Gru was still alive, he would be stronger than you now. Gru was the chief of Chaos Force who had imparted the Power Upanishad to Katua. He had been confined in the God-burying land for many years before he was killed in the battle against the 4 great heavenly kings. Gru was also at the immortal realm, but his realm wasn't as high as Chiemo. Anyway, Gru was really powerful and he had endless potential. If the God Lord hadn't plotted against him, Gru wouldn't have been dead. Gru was also a member of the God Clan. As the God Lord had fused with the origin of ancient God continent, he had power over Gru. Because of him, the 4 great heavenly kings could kill Gru. Bang! At the peak of Immortal Realm, Chiemo's chaotic magnetic field was covered inside the 5-colored halo. It was exploding. Another expert from Desolate Territory. Warriors from Desolate Territory are fierce. Gosh, are we doing something wrong here? This man is also at the Immortal Realm with 5 elements power and the Light Power Upanishad. He's really awesome. Fierce. The God Lord Brian's performance sparked more discussion and showed the toughness of the warriors from Desolate Territory. They didn't know that Minghao and Brian were peerless experts in Desolate Territory. They were the 2 strongest experts of the entire Desolate Territory. They could make people awestruck. It was enough to prove how hard they had worked and exerted themselves in tens of thousands of years. The chaotic magnetic field shattered. Chiemo was scared. He and his troops from the Devouring Clan changed their target. Now, they all aimed at the God Lord. Minghao could relax a little bit. He just needed to deal with Forefather Earth Ghoul Ba Di and Neptune's 2 brutal souls. Apparently, his situation stabilized. Quite the contrary, Emperor Sea Shark was besieged by 3 territory ancestors. Gradually, he was pushed to a disadvantaged situation. Emperor Sea Shark was frantic and he couldn't leave. He was worn out indeed. Warriors from Desolate Territory. Interesting. It seems like we need to take care of them well, Farrell sneered. Inside the Thunderbolt territory above his head, a massive lightning net was created and it snatched down. It didn't even attempt to avoid Chiemo and Ba Di. Ba Di and Chiemo left immediately when the situation went wrong. As the lightning net didn't aim at them, it still lowered. Sizzle. Sizzle. Minghao's soul clones vanished when the lightning net touched them. Even the God Lord Brian had to change his countenance. When the massive lightning net caught them, his brilliant, holy halo was pressed. He felt suddenly powerless. The lightning struck his soul altar grumblingly and his soul consciousness was damaged. Cough. Cough. The God Lord coughed hard and blood gushed out of his mouth, his face pale. Minghao, you and I haven't reached the territory ancestor realm. Otherwise, we would have vandalized this sea of annihilation. It's really unfortunate that even at the last moment, we haven't seen the threshold to territory ancestor realm. I'm dissatisfied. I'm also dissatisfied. Flows of Minghao's soul gathered and turned into a massive shadow. Even if my soul vanishes, I have to show them how fierce and malicious warriors of the Desolate Territory are. You want to use the forbidden space power? The God Lord was surprised and bitter. Your soul will vanish. The seabed is different from other areas. The backfire when the space entry collides with water pressure is enough to destroy your soul altar. You can't endure it. I have to try anyway, Minghao said sorrowfully. Swish. 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 Space cracks and slits expanded in this area and moved like slithering snakes. A flow of strange aura extended from Minghao's body. Erg! Minghao faced the sky and screamed. His ghostly body seemed to become a shattered mirror reflecting so many broken worlds. Swoosh! Swoosh! The space cracks undersea were like open wounds that were torn further apart. The rapid current flood from outer space was visible like a brutal demon opening his mouth to swallow everything. This incident made Neptune pale. He looked and shouted, "Space Power Upanishad at third sky of immortal realm." A brutal soul that looked like a beast in the immemorial epic with green faces and yellow fangs appeared. His body was as big as a mountain. His arms were like a sky supported by pillars that pounded on Minghao. Minghao was like a shattered mirror that cracked. He couldn't resist the massive fists pounded on him and he collapsed. Just a wisp of a soul. He dares use the forbidden space energy on the seabed. He doesn't treasure his life, indeed. Do you think your soul form can endure the backfire? Smirked Neptune. Minghao. Brian hissed, his eyes complicated. If this soul is your real body, you will. As soon as he was about to let the word die slip out of his mouth, he was surprised to see Minghao's vanishing soul. That soul was wriggling like a cut worm. Under some magical power, pieces of his soul were gathering and gluing to each other. Shortly after, Minghao congregated in a distorted way. Boom, boom, boom. A strange life energy, which was powerful and immense, emitted from Minghao's soul. A flow of vitality ignited his life magnetic field once again. At the same time, dozens of bright crystals appeared above their heads. Those crystals had different shapes that looked like rhombuses, cones, eggs, and cubes in many different colors. They were moving grumblingly like a shaking galaxy that shot meteors. Each of the meteors was like an edged sword. They seemed to have a soul consciousness, as if they could find lives on their own to attack. Minghao's forbidden space technique paused magically. The space cracks didn't expand anymore. Strange sharp space wheels were created at areas where space was about to shatter. They moved around wildly and harvested lives. A brilliant starlight cage appeared amid those crystals, which was very eye-catching. They lifted their heads to see and screamed in fear. That's him. The warrior that the 5 clans want. Shuryen! It's Shuryen! He dares to come here. The crowd was boiling. Minghao was thrilled. A flow of immense vitality was sent to his soul, and it healed his collapsing soul magnetic field. He was formed again. Lifting his head to look at Shuryen, he was shaken. At a glimpse of time, he thought he saw Bloodthirsty. Emperor Sea Shark doesn't look good. If he can't wake up, he can't leave alive, reminded Meiji. Inside the light cage, Shuryen pulled himself together. After first glance, he saw Emperor Sea Shark covered in blood and was surprised. What Emperor Sea Shark was going through at the moment were the side effects of Rampage. As he didn't cultivate devouring power Upanishad and his acupuncture points didn't contain negative energy, he was burning his life energy to stimulate his rampage. Thus, it was hard for him to recover. Looking at Emperor Sea Shark, Minghao, and the God Lord, Shuryen didn't say a word while continuing to use his star power Upanishad. Dozens of crystals around him moved and slowly arrayed into the shape of a big bear. The bear observed the area and then opened its mouth, spraying a cold breath. It was the cold energy from the meteors on dozens of crystals. The wisp of cold energy was like a cool stream that ran directly to Emperor Sea Shark's crown of the head. Boom! Emperor Sea Shark got hit by the cold energy and sank. However, the frenzious will in his eyes gradually vanished. He was finally awakened. Chapter 1466. Are you still sleepy? Chapter 1466. Are you still sleepy? Underscored deep under the sea, so many stars were moving and illuminating the seabed. Shuryen stood between the stars and starlight twirled around him like a waterfall. The stars gathered and created a massive silver bear, which then spurted a stream of cold energy. Emperor Sea Shark was hit, and he sank deeper. When he could steady his body, he looked mindful of the situation. What's that? Meiji was surprised, and she observed the big bear made of dozens of crystals, her beautiful eyes frightened. She could feel an aura of something from the isolated absolute beginning era. That aura was special and cold. That massive bear was the essence of the stars. It looked so real and it glowed in a silver halo. The bear created by dozens of stars almost shaded the sky and the sea of annihilation seabed. It's the little bear. Constellation power. At second sky of immortal realm, Shuryen's star power Upanishad was greatly advanced. He had gathered the broken stars and stashed them in his incipient extent. Afterward, he figured out that they were actually a constellation above the sea of annihilation. The constellation consisted of many bright stars, and they were related to each other. The stars with the spirit can connect to each other after staying together for billions of years. The spirit or the soul of those stars can blend with each other magically to create the mysterious power of the entire constellation. The Little Bear constellation was created by the souls of dozens of stars. It was the combination of the stars' souls. A surging beam of starlight from it had awakened Emperor Sea Shark. Emperor Sea Shark started smiling. He lifted his head and looked at Shiryen. He snarled, "Why did you return?" Shiryen frowned and didn't look at him. The black hole emerged from behind his head. The demon's mouth opened and sucked. Instantly, so many souls shrieked and screeched. The warriors who had only soul altars left after Emperor Sea Shark's attack were so frightened. The water pressure that had increased dozens of times burst, and their soul altars were left floating in the deep sea. They were observing a battle to gain something. However, as soon as a black hole emerged, they completely collapsed. They screeched and tried to run away. Unfortunately, it was too late. No matter how hard they struggled, their soul altars couldn't get rid of the black hole's suction force. They revolved and were dragged into Shiryen's black hole. The sinister black hole stirred and swallowed soul altars while releasing a fierce soul energy fluctuation. Many people in this area were shaking in fear, including Neptune's brutal souls. Devouring Power Upanishad was the nemesis of the ghosts or things in soul form. After the black hole emerged, the three brutal souls that were like imposing mountains were now shivering like kittens by Neptune. The two brutal souls fighting with Ming Hao were feeble as if they were the willow catkins that were about to vanish. Shiryen observed Neptune's brutal souls. He understood it immediately. If his devouring power Upanishad reached a certain level, he could subdue the brutal souls of the Soul Clan. He could even swallow those brutal souls as he swallowed the soul altars. As Ming Hao is also a soul form, he didn't feel well when a black hole appeared. But with his soul control power Upanishad and space power Upanishad, he could adjust his condition shortly after. He sealed himself in a small, private space to avoid the devouring power Upanishad. Devouring power Upanishad. It's the exclusive secret of the devouring clan. Devouring power Upanishad. But they said that the devouring clan didn't have any warrior cultivating devouring power Upanishad? How could he know that? Gosh, the devouring power Upanishad comes back. The warriors of the Sea of Annihilation were panic-stricken. They screamed and their faces were ugly. Chiemo and the devouring clan warriors had the worst grimace. Looking at Shiryen use the devouring power Upanishad of their clan to swallow so many soul altars, they felt their hearts bleed. Their eyes flared with the flame of anger. This devouring power Upanishad belonged to their ancestor, but now, even the direct descendants couldn't even use it. This damn kid was using it to slaughter them now. It's our devouring clan's exclusive power Upanishad. Chiemo screamed indignantly like an enraged beast. The twisted, chaotic magnetic field emitted from him and attacked Shiryen furiously. Pathetic, Meiji smiled like hundreds of flowers blooming. Her graceful body danced and so many icicles shot from the sky that hit Chiemo. Chiemo's body became a mess of blood and flesh. Why did Meiji become so fierce? They said that she's hurt severely, didn't they? The warriors from the devouring clan under Chiemo's command screamed. They couldn't believe it either. Just like Chiemo, they stormed and advanced toward Meiji and Shiryen. Constellation power. Shiryen smiled and stooped his body. The big silver bear acted exactly like him. It stooped and pounded its furry fist on the prey underneath. The big furry fist brought starlight bands in the sky and fell on Chiemo and the warriors of the devouring clan. Boop, boop, boop. Except for Chiemo, the devouring clan warriors were smashed like watermelons. Their bones became bone dust. Chiemo's body was crushed. In his last moment, he used the chaotic energy to stir his soul altar and attacked Shiryen once more time. Tu Shirchi, Yayun, and Forefather Dragon Lizard were watching the battle. They gawked and even the God Lord and Ming Hao had to smack their tongue. They screamed and appraised the abnormal kid. Some warriors in Chiemo's crew had even reached second sky of Immortal Realm, but they couldn't resist the bear's big fists. At the peak of Immortal Realm, Chimo's body had been blasted off under the bear's fists. They were very strong. They didn't know that Shuryan's body, power, realm, and power Upanishads had leaped up after he had parted from them. While killing around the Sea of Annihilation seabed, Shuryan had gained benefits beyond their understanding. His body and power had strengthened greatly. He entered Second Sky of Immortal Realm with a new understanding of star power Upanishad in addition to the Little Bear Constellation. At this moment, Shuryan was at the peak of his life. He was a true god of slaughter that descended to this world. Using Chaos Power Upanishad to deal with me? Shuryan grinned when he saw Chimo storming toward him. Are you still sleepy? Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The black hole above Shuryan's head looked like a terrifying whirlpool with a powerful suction force that was increasing as if it could suck all things in this world. The big silver bear by Shuryan also felt the danger. It instinctively ducked. Billions of years ago, the absolute beginning creature devourer had used this power Upanishad to swallow so many stars and refine star energy, making it a part of his own energy to transform. The stars could feel the evil features of the devouring power Upanishad, and they knew that it could dissolve them. The Chaos Power Upanishad was one of the 8 great, evil power Upanishad from Devour. They were naturally bound to devouring power Upanishad. Chimo had used the power of his blood and flesh to urge the soul altar. Shuryan was correct, he was still sleepy. Not good. Chimo doesn't know the danger. The devouring clan has lost the power Upanishad for a long time. They forgot the bond between the devouring power Upanishad and the 8 evil powers. This man courts death. Many onlookers were screaming. Chimo suddenly screamed desperately. The black hole arose and his chaos power Upanishad stopped listening to him. The suction force had pulled him into the black whirlpool. As Chimo saw the fatal situation, he made up his mind. While screaming crazily, his body exploded, and he became a flesh bomb that attacked the other. His soul altar tried to run away when his body exploded. He had attempted to get rid of the devouring power Upanishad. In that moment, he finally believed in his precursors that the devouring power Upanishad could subdue the 8 evil powers. He was totally convinced. However, it was too late. Do you know how Gonfu died? Shuryan faced the sky and smiled crazily, his laughter reverberating in the entire Sea of Annihilation. She died foolishly like you. She wanted to use the corrosion power Upanishad to kill me, an expert with devouring power Upanishad. She died because of that. Well, just like her, you will never escape. Boom. Chimo was shaken. As he was about to run away, Shuryan's words had struck him. Finally, he had lost his mind completely. He howled like a beast and his soul altar burned. All the warriors in this area saw the burning soul altar storm toward Shuryan and attempt to drag him into hell altogether. Shuryan! Watch out! Meiji screamed. Don't swallow the soul altar that is burning vitality. It'll create trouble. Minghao also reminded. Shuryan was surprised. Then, he sneered. You can't do anything. A fantasy boundary stone arose in front of his chest and created a misty world. Chimo's burning soul altar flew into the world created by the fantasy boundary stone. Boom! Chimo's soul altar exploded. The world inside the fantasy boundary stone exploded into pieces. When the fantasy boundary stone exploded, Shuryan's body had hundreds of cuts on his body, most of them deep to the bone. His face also bore many cuts and was bleeding terribly. Chimo was gone. He had burned his soul altar to kill Shuryan, but all he could do was to destroy one of Shuryan's fantasy boundary stones. However, the fantasy boundary stone was pumped by Shuryan's god power and power Upanishad. When it shattered, it also backfired at Shuryan and wounded him. Shuryan was bleeding. He smacked his tongue as he was a little scared. At the 3rd sky of Immortal Realm, the power when Chimo's soul altar burst off was really terrifying. Shuryan had reacted timely and released the fantasy boundary stone. Otherwise, Chimo's self-detonation would have made him a puddle of blood. Chimo and his crew from the devouring clan were killed tragically. Shuryan hovered by the big silver bear and looked like he had endured hundreds of gashes. His face was also gory, which sent shivers down people's spines. Shi grinned eccentrically as people were watching him. His laughter made people shiver in fear. Chapter 1467, Constellation Power. Chapter 1467, Constellation Power. Is this brutal demon the one we're seeking for? Is there a mistake? Second Sky of Immortal Realm. He is only Second Sky of Immortal Realm cultivation base. How could it be? GMO was at peak of Immortal Realm. Gosh, we thought it was simple. If we had known this earlier, we wouldn't have gotten involved in this. Many people began to regret. They were here because they wanted to observe a battle between the territory ancestors to learn dark energy. However, most of them were here to capture Shi to get the Power Upanishad symbol tower. And now, the target they had been waiting for had come back with guts. As soon as he came, he showcased his skills that were beyond anyone's imagination. He had slaughtered GMO and the warriors from the Devouring clan. His devouring power Upanishad made Neptune's brutal soul shiver. Also, he had used the power of the constellation to wake up Emperor Sea Shark. He had almost overturned the situation single-handedly. Little Bear Constellation's indignant roar. Shi grinned and licked the blood at the corners of his mouth. The big silver bear created by the stars faced the sky and roared. Its ferocious nature was completely stimulated. The crystals in its body collided with each other grumblingly. Massive asteroids fell from the sky. At this moment, it looked like the silver bear was shattering. Streams of asteroids grumblingly sank, each of them as big as an island. They brought the wrath of a savage bear. Crack! Crack! Pfft! When the asteroids hit the other warriors, their bodies were directly smashed. The light cage they had built to protect their bodies were fragile as if they were made of an eggshell. Many Immortal Realm experts were bleeding terribly. They looked more helter-skelter than Shi did. Why did you attack us? You're crazy. We didn't do anything. Are you crazy, man? They shrieked and screeched, criticizing Shi indignantly. Haha, you've crossed thousands of miles from the surface to come here and find me, haven't you? Shi smirked. If you dare to come, you should expect to see my flames of anger. You think I'm alone so you can bully me? You think I'm just a low-realm warrior so you can do whatever you want to me? You're so naive. After the asteroids had fallen from the sky, dozens of more warriors were crushed and their soul altars escaped. Once the soul altars emerged, Shi directly used his devouring power Upanishad to swallow them all. The Sea of Annihilation seabed had become the Shura Hell. The onlookers from different clans were attacked by the asteroids and they got smashed. More people recognized the dangerous situation. They tried their best to not let their bodies shatter, even if they had to bear damages in their soul altars. As long as they had their bodies, their soul altars weren't going to be devoured. Shi, you want to attack us too? You're crazy. Damn you. I gave you an immortal pellet. Tu Shirchi, Yayun, and Forefather Dragon Lizard were attacked by 300-meter-tall asteroids. They had to join hands to resist the asteroids. All looked helter-skelter. They screamed and scolded Shi for returning favors with bad deeds. They thought that Shi was very heartless. Shi line of sight fell on them. He frowned and said coldly, "Do you know what's repaying favors with bad deeds? If you knew, you wouldn't have come to the Sea of Annihilation seabed. When we were on Dragon Lizard Star, without me, Sing would have killed you and Neptune's soul-refining cauldron would have sucked your blood and soul quickly. And you, Tu Shirchi, if I hadn't used my space energy to unlock your spatial lock, do you think you could have escaped that lock? If I hadn't stopped Meiji, you and your wife would have been killed on Dragon Lizard Star. Because I killed Lingmei, a woman from the mysterious Sky Clan, you got your eyes fixed on me just to have an answer to your forefather Han Tian? Lingmei had seized the chance when I was hurt to strike Meiji. Her soul magnetic field almost broke. When she wanted to kill me, where were you? I didn't see you trying to seek justice for me. Shi face was dark and cold. Because Lingmei was the granddaughter of Han Tian and I'm not a member of the mysterious Sky Clan, and because I didn't agree to be your clan's non-native officer, you were going to kill me. Pausing for a breath, Shi shouted, "Why? Why?" Boom. Another asteroid fell from the sky and hit the asteroid above Tu Shirchi, Yayun, and Forefather Dragon Lizard. 2 asteroids piled up and increased the pressure. Boom, boom, boom. Tu Shirchi and Yayun's bodies cracked and bled badly. Although Forefather Dragon Lizard was just a clone, he was Lizard's later generation. His body was tough enough to resist. However, he still shook. Lava was churning in his eyes. He was panic-stricken. It was just 10 years after the incident on Dragon Lizard Star. At that time, Shi Yan was at the incipient God realm, and he had used one of his immortal pellets to reach the immortal realm. And now, his power was terrifying. With such progress, in the near future, even the mysterious Sky Clan weren't going to be able to subdue him. Forefather Dragon Lizard was regretful. He regretted coming to the seabed with Tu Shirchi and Yayun to find Shi Yan. Even though he remembered Shi Yan's favor and protected him by asking Tu Shirchi and Yayun to give him chances when he jumped into the sea, no matter what his attitude was, he had chosen to stand against Shi Yan. Old man, you're right. This kid has endless potential. We were all wrong. Yayun's blood dripped from her mouth to her chest, her face bitter. I always said that we were wrong. I've underestimated his potential. If I had known his competence, I would have ignored Ling Mei then. Sigh. Tu Shirchi sighed. Do you want to watch more? Farrell asked Ricardo with a wince. Ricardo lifted his head, his face surprised. He was dazed as he watched Shi Yan attack everywhere. He hadn't taken any action. Hearing Farrell, Ricardo chuckled. If you want to take action, do it yourself. Although that kid is fierce, you can still kill him simply. Why didn't you do that? If Emperor Sea Shark didn't see it earlier, I would have taken action. Farrell scolded. Not far from him, Emperor Sea Shark looked much colder, his eyes gazing at Farrell. He knew that if he made the slightest move, Emperor Sea Shark's fierce attack would bombard him instantly. He wasn't so sure that Ricardo was honest to him to help him cope with Emperor Sea Shark. Thus, he was hesitant. As for Neptune, because his brutal souls were subdued by the devouring power Upanishad, he had become the most pathetic expert. Apparently, he got the power of a territory ancestor realm expert because of his suppression brutal souls, which were also his most powerful ones. He didn't have any means left to deal with the others. At this moment, he was gathering his brutal souls, his face pensive as if he was hesitating before striking. Ricardo, Farrell, and Neptune didn't do anything, which meant that no territory ancestor had taken action to stop Shi Yan. GMO and the members of the Devouring Clan didn't have the power to resist the devouring power Upanishad. Shi Yan had seized the chance and killed them all. It had shaken everybody on the scene. Shi Yan could use his Constellation power smoothly without encountering any obstacle because the others were still in a daze after witnessing Chimo's death. GMO was at the peak of Immortal Realm, and Shi Yan, an expert at Second Sky of Immortal Realm, was able to kill him. His resentful death had cast a shadow in their hearts. Only Minghao, the God Lord, and a few knew that it was a retributive relationship between the devouring power Upanishad and the chaos power Upanishad since Shi Yan could kill GMO. They understood that if Shi Yan faced another third sky of Immortal Realm, even if he could win, he would have to pay a terrible, bloody price. They knew that, but they didn't say it out loud. Shi Yan had an intimidating aura of an overlord, which had worried the others and given him time and room to use his Constellation power to check the essence of his new star power Upanishad's ability. The situation entered a strange phase. The experts from the other areas on the seabed or from the surface had come to cooperate with Ricardo, Neptune, and Farrell to hunt Shi Yan. However, the 3 territory ancestors had stood idle and watched Shi Yan slaughter many people and swallow their soul altars. The seabed became bloody. The asteroids from the Big Silver Bear seemed to have their own consciousness. After they had fallen and smashed one warrior, they could slowly rise up again to prepare for the next attack. Everybody knew that if they let Shi Yan do what he wanted like this, the situation was going to turn to the point of no control. Neptune had hesitated for a long time. Eventually, he lifted his head and looked at Shi Yan. If it's not because of the devouring power Upanishad, it's easy to kill you. Let alone your second sky of Immortal Realm, Even if you were at peak of immortal realm, you would have made no difference. You will see the difference between the immortal realm and territory ancestor realm. Then, the divine weapon was conjured. As soon as the soul-refining cauldron emerged from Neptune's head, his brutal souls all wormed into the cauldron. The three-legged cauldron moved. Countless absolute beginning symbols were wiggling on its surface and emitting an aura that could enter people's soul. The cauldron then fell between the asteroids in the sky. Abruptly, the brutal souls began to shriek and cry from inside the cauldron. As soon as the warriors around heard the cries, so many ghosts and departed souls stormed out. There were tens of thousands of them. Those brutal souls were stabilized and enhanced by the soul-refining cauldron. They weren't afraid of the devouring power Upanishad anymore. They circled and dragged many asteroids together. After dozens of seconds, the big silver bear congregated one more time. This time, it wasn't Shuryen who did that. The brutal souls had forced the asteroids and glued them together. At first glance, so many brutal souls and ghosts had covered the silver bear. In the next moment, the jade three-legged cauldron snatched over it. Waves of soul energy from the cauldron made the silver bear screech in agony. The spirit inside the stars seemed to be tamed. They were so worried that they tried to seek help from Shuryen. Go! A brutal soul, which looked like 100-meter-tall lion, flew out. Its massive claws attacked Shuryen. Shuryen's wounded body was torn, revealing a bloody hole where people could see his internal organs and intestines. Neptune coughed badly. He looked at the soul-refining cauldron, his face baffled. It seemed like using the cauldron had cost him a lot. This cauldron hadn't been completely fixed, and he hadn't tamed it yet. When he forced the divine weapon, he had to endure the backfire. The devouring power Upanishad could somehow subdue his brutal souls. He had to pay with the backfire of the soul-refining cauldron to kill Shuryen. Ricardo, Feral, stop Emperor C's shark for me for a while. I have to kill this kid first. Neptune seized a moment between his coughs to shout. No problem. Feral agreed immediately. Ricardo lifted his head to look at Shuryen and then at Emperor C's shark. Pondering for a while, he nodded, I'll watch Emperor C's shark. I won't let him trouble you. Chapter 1468, Yin and Yang, Left and Right. Chapter 1468, Yin and Yang, Left and Right. Ricardo and Feral agreed with Neptune. The two of them scattered to block Emperor C's shark on his left and right and attack him simultaneously. Ricardo's and Feral's territories suddenly emitted ripples that carried a bizarre aura that came from their sea of consciousness. It was dark energy. Ricardo's and Feral's territories swelled like an inflated balloon. The energies emitted from the two territories were burning flames and wild lightning. The flames and lightning seemed to have lives as they became flame spirits, and the essence of lightning accompanied by Ricardo's and Feral's life aura. It was like they had created two new species from thin air. The dark energy was also negative energy. Rumors said that it could create a new world or destroy a world. It could create living beings. With dark energy, the territories of the two territory ancestors were connected to the real world. The flame and lightning spirits in the two worlds danced and attacked Emperor C's shark's territory. Emperor C's shark discolored and muttered, using dark energy to improve the territory and create lives. It requires using soul consciousness and dark energy. You guys are here to help Neptune. I don't know why you have to sacrifice a lot like that. The absolute beginning original symbol is very important. We all need an absolute beginning original symbol to strengthen the territory and generate more dark energy, Ricardo pondered and then said. I don't want to risk my life with you. As long as you don't come out, I won't use all of my energy. Feral wanted to launch a fatal attack. Hearing Ricardo, his face darkened. Emperor C's shark looked at the two of them. Dark energy surged in his sea of consciousness and vigorously expanded. His water territory expanded along with dark energy. So many water drops became crystal clear with a life aura. It seemed like they were given lives and shapes instantly. They were palm-sized, water warriors without facial features. However, they had soul energy. They moved out of the water territory, swarming and slashing the creatures Ricardo and Feral had created with their dark energy. At the same time, Neptune leaped up. He raised his hand and snatched. The soul-refining cauldron fell back into his hand. Billions of ghosts and departed souls had congregated into a giant demon claw and attacked Shiryan. Constellation power. Shiryan's body was cut and bleeding hard. The others could even see the organs in his chest. He roared indignantly. The massive rocks on the seabed flew up. Within 3 breaths, they had formed a giant silver bear. The big bear roared crazily and hit the giant demon claw. Millions of brutal souls and ghosts were torn into pieces. They turned into a gray mist and smoke and vanished. The big bear pulled and tugged the demon claw, preventing it from attacking Shiryan. The star energy in his body was drained rapidly. Shiryan hovered in the void, his face cold. He changed his power Upanishad. In the tier of power Upanishads in his soul altar, the absolute beginning original symbol inside the life ball erupted vitality. The stream of rolling vitality flooded Shiryan's limbs and internal organs. As so many warriors were gazing at him, his body, which could become a pulp of flesh at any minute, started healing at a speed that naked eyes could observe. His veins grew. His broken bones connected. Fibers of flesh in his cuts moved and closed. The deep gashes on Shiryan's pale, terrible face faded and then disappeared completely. With the torrential vitality from the absolute beginning original symbol, his badly damaged body recovered. In this moment, his naked torso showcased his tough muscles. He had only a pair of shorts on his iron-like body. His muscular frame gave people an expression of something vigorous and exploding. The torrential life energy didn't cease and started flooding his entire body. The others who were watching him could even hear something amazing rumble inside him. It was the vitality. The enormous vitality that nothing could compare to. Many warriors couldn't help but cover their mouths in awe while witnessing this miracle. Many of them couldn't even believe their own eyes. Shiryan's badly damaged body healed after 10 breaths. He even looked stronger than before. What happened? Life power Upanishad. The absolute beginning original symbol he got must be the life power Upanishad. Only the power of the absolute beginning original symbol can create such a wonder. Forefather Dragon Lizard said as he couldn't believe it. This man is unbelievably lucky. As he got an absolute beginning original symbol that fused with his life power Upanishad, unless he uses up all of his energy, he can always use the absolute beginning original symbol to recover. Tu Shirchi and Yayun were dumbstruck. They found that they couldn't predict Shiryan's future and development anymore. Also, they hated Ling Mei for her reckless deeds, which had made the mysterious Sky Clan lose the fiercest friend. He's Bloodthirsty's disciple. If that man was still alive, he would be much more intimidating than forefather Han Tian, Yayun reminded in a low voice. Tu Shirchi nodded with a forced smile. He suddenly felt that the situation was going to be much more complicated to handle than he had estimated. Pondering for a while, he said, "All right. We should just watch this battle. We shouldn't get involved anymore. After it's finished, we will report everything to forefather Han Tian. He won't blame us too much." Anyway, he had an encounter with Bloodthirsty that year. Yeah, Yayun nodded as she agreed with him, her eyes upset. It turns out that you have the life absolute beginning original symbol. Neptune sat cross-legged on a brutal soul. Holding the soul-refining cauldron, he was controlling the massive demon claw, his eyes radiating magical light. Shiryan stayed naked. His eyes slowly turned garnet. Spikes tore his skin and jutted outward. A pair of bone wings emerged from his back. Right afterward, a set of gory armor shrouded him. The chest plates of his armor had magical blood clouds that bloomed like flowers. He clutched a blood-dripping sword in his hand, which had so many open eyes. A strange, evil aura slowly emitted from him. At that moment, Shiryan had transfigured to his best fighting mode. He had even equipped the blood shield and the blood sword. He wanted to risk his life now. When a warrior at the immortal realm wants to challenge a territory ancestor realm expert, unless he gets dark energy very early, at his peak of immortal realm and with an absolute beginning divine weapon, he won't have a chance to survive. Neptune looked at him and said mindfully, "Unfortunately, you're at second sky of immortal realm. You don't have an absolute beginning weapon. Even though your life form evolved well, only death awaits you." Neptune laughed evilly. He had drawn a long, black river from his glabella. That river was created by dark energy with his soul as the source of power. So many water demons were floating in that river. It looked like the Nether River deep inside the Nether Sea in Hell. The river had murmuring, ink-black water. The water demons showed their fangs and raised their claws, disappearing into the sea. The warriors who could use dark energy knew that it was Neptune's killing strike. At the Territory Ancestor realm, it wasn't easy to gather dark energy. They wouldn't use it because of that. Once they used dark energy, their soul, spirit, will, and chi would become one to increase dark energy, which would turn into his life-taking attack. The onlookers thought that the river had disappeared. However, when the experts with dark energy sent dark energy to their eyes, they could see that jet-black river flow toward Shiryen. The big silver bear created by Shiryen's constellation power was still resisting the demon claw. Moreover, it was in a bad situation. Its crystals were exploding one by one. That soul river was approaching Shiryen with a soul threat that he couldn't resist. Shiryen felt a massive rock pressing on his chest that made him unable to breathe. His soul altar began to have cracks when the river came closer. His sea of consciousness seethed and his power Upanishad ceased. It seemed like the river could affect him a lot. Star Chain. Space Cross/. Death Seal. He activated 3 techniques continuously. Dozens of meteors and space blades came with massive hand seals of death that attacked the soul river. The soul river didn't even bubble. It wasn't affected at all. Still, the river flowed toward Shiryen. Neptune's mouth curled coldly. He grinned and deliberately made the river flow slowly. It seemed like he enjoyed Shiryen's desperate and powerless expression a lot. Dark energy can create worlds, and it can also destroy worlds. It's the negative power of earth and heaven. The warriors can only have it after the soul, body, and soul consciousness transforms to a particular level. God power, star energy, and space energy can't dissolve a dark energy attack. It requires dark energy and negative energy to dissolve it. Your pathetic, minute amount of dark energy will never be enough to neutralize my soul river. Shiryen paled, frowning and saying nothing. The earth and heaven can be categorized as yin and yang, or left and right. The God power, star, space, and chi are the yang ones, or part of the right. Dark energy is the yin, or the left. It's like a person who has a soul and a body. The energy generated by the body is God power, star power, or space power. It belongs to the passive energy category. Only the energy generated by the soul is dark energy. The God power stays in the body while the dark energy hides in the sea of consciousness. As you have dark energy, your soul reached a strong level. But your realm is not high enough. It's unfortunate. Neptune sneered as he explained the left and right, yin and yang, body and soul to Shiryen. He was confident that Shiryen would die this time. Many warriors around the seabed listened to Neptune as he was talking about the yin and yang, left and right, and dark energy. They all looked pensive. Especially Ming Hao and God Lord Brian. They felt like they were suddenly enlightened with a clear path. Amazing, holy light radiated from their eyes. Forefather Dragon Lizard was also bewildered as he replayed what Neptune had said. He seemed to get something. Freeze. A cold voice arose at this moment. It was from Meiji. A thick ice wall was congregated and standing in Neptune's soul river's way. The ice wall sparkled strongly and partially visible. Neptune's soul river was stopped magically. Tui. Meiji's charming face became ashen like a sheet of white paper. She spurted blood. The light in her eyes dimmed and vanished. Chapter 1469. Sky and Earth Turning Upside Down. Chapter 1469. Sky and Earth Turning Upside Down. The seawater turned red in Meiji's eyes. It was a mix between seawater and blood. The blood wasn't diluted in the seawater. It was like a bloody handkerchief that totally contrasted with her pale face. The ice wall was also created by dark energy, and it carried the power and essence of ice power Upanishad with Meiji's soul consciousness. Boom, boom, boom. The ice wall exploded as the river barged into it. Meiji's body shook as her soul was exhausted and her power got drained. Her glowing skin became loose and her jade-like face becoming wrinkled. Not bad. You finally got dark energy. The Phantom clan should have one more territory ancestor. Too bad. Neptune was calm and squinting. The light in his eyes was sharp and cold. The Soul River finally pierced through the ice wall and continuously moved toward Shiryen. Meiji was aging fast. Her hair became white like fog and her eyes filled with sorrow. A fantasy bounder stone flew out of his palm. A chunk of starlight with surging vitality rolled inside that fantasy boundary stone. The stone inflated like a big bag and shrouded Meiji. Tearing a space slit, Shiryen put the fantasy boundary stone in it and watched Meiji disappear. He didn't leave. The Soul River ran straight into his forehead. Boom! A flame ignited right at Shiryen's glabella. It flickered with a life aura. A soul became visible inside the flame. It was Shiryen, but it was different. It was a soul created out of fire. Under the flame were countless gray clouds that were made of dark energy from the sea of consciousness. Inside that flame was Shiryen's second soul. Neptune's Soul River barged into that flame and aimed at Shiryen's co-soul. Boom! Billions of flames burned fiercely. Shiryen's co-soul became partially clear. Staying inside the furious flame, it gradually changed like a stretching shadow of a ferocious demon. An earth-shaking intimidatingly came from that giant shadow. In between billions of flames, the giant shadow raised one hand and pulled Neptune's Soul River. Ricardo, Feral, and Emperor Sea Shark were fighting. Their faces changed as they stopped fighting. Magical light shot out of their eyes when they looked at Shiryen. All the warriors on the Sea of Annihilation's seabed lifted their heads to look at Shiryen. Tu Shi, Forefather Dragon Lizard, and Yayun looked extremely odd. Forefather Dragon Lizard muttered in the old language of the Dragon Lizard clan. It was a language taught by Absolute Beginning Creature Lizard. As soon as he saw the giant shadow, he instinctively spoke the old language of his clan. Shiryen's eyes looked baffled. He stood imposingly in the seawater. In front of him, countless flames had formed a lotus throne with dark energy clouds supporting a vague giant. That giant shadow continued to change with the heaven flames as the body and Shiryen's co-soul as the control center. God Lord Brian and Audrey became baffled at the same time in two different areas. It looked like their souls were taken. They couldn't help but clutch their heads and crouch in pain. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. All of a sudden, billions of flames flew out of Brian and Audrey. They had different colors and it seemed like they had their own lives. All of those flames gathered with the flaming lotus throne in front of Shiryen. The ferocious shadow on the lotus throne had become even bigger. The terrifying, formidable aura slowly emitted. Oh! Arg! Many people around couldn't endure the pressure. They were forced to kneel down uncontrollably. Some even crouched on the ground and didn't dare to lift their head up. Neptune's dark energy Soul River aiming at the flaming lotus throne was pulled and torn. The giant shadow tore it directly. Neptune was so bitter, his eyes terrified. He wanted to run away. Boom! A tie in his soul was pulled. He discolored in fright as he looked at the soul-refining cauldron. He had lost the connection with the cauldron. The soul-refining cauldron strangely flew away and fell on Audrey. Every eye was gazing at the soul-refining cauldron when it got into Audrey's head. The cauldron then began to fuse with Audrey. In this strange atmosphere, God Lord Brian slowly rose, his eyes still closed. Billions of halos rippled through him and created a crystal barrier of light. A dazzling light orb flew out of Brian's chest. The giant shadow caught it. The light orb suddenly became more blazing as if it had hundreds of stars in it. The giant shadow hurled the light orb away and aimed at Neptune. Neptune ran crazily, his face desperate and his brutal soles bobbing restlessly. The light orb chased after him. Eventually, it got Neptune and entered his body. Neptune was numb as his nether territory exploded. A dazzling sun was hanging in his cold and dark world. He had to run helter-skelter for his life. How could it be? How could it be? Ricardo was bewildered as he looked at the sky. Oh gosh! Farrell screamed hoarsely. Emperor Sea Shark was so surprised. He seized Shinren, who had been wounded severely, and fled at his fastest speed. The vague shadow in front of Shuryen suddenly roared inaudibly in between so many flames. Its energy run directly into everybody's soul. The warriors below Third Sky of Immortal Realm had their soul altars collapsed, their incipient extent shattered. Bodies exploded under the sea. All of a sudden, the seabed had more than hundreds of corpses. Those at Third Sky of Immortal Realm like Forefather Dragon Lizard, Tushir Chi, Yayun, and the Forefather Earth Ghoul had to run away as they were pressed until their natural facial holes bled. Ricardo and Farrell gazed at that giant shadow for 3 seconds. They exchanged looks as they felt so chilled. Immediately, they ran away. So many space cracks in the seabed vanished into the seawater as if they were snow under the fire. If someone could use the soul consciousness to check the entire Sea of Annihilation, that person would see the immensely vast space of the Sea of Annihilation shrinking strangely. It was like a deflating balloon shrinking rapidly. Shuryen was still bewildered and standing blankly as if his soul was gone. Audrey sat on a corner with the soul-refining cauldron in her head. The cauldron was fusing with her. God Lord Brian closed his eyes and floated in the sea like a blazing sun. Ming Hao, the Soul Control Chief, was kneeling on the ground. Lifting his head to see the formidable figure in the sea, he was begrudgingly desperate when the other had his life in his hand. After less than a minute, because of that terrifying shadow, the negative situation completely overturned. Hundreds of warriors at the immortal realm of the Sea of Annihilation were killed instantly, except for some Third Sky of Immortal Realm experts. Neptune's territory shattered. He had to run away as his soul altar was badly damaged. Ricardo and Farrell didn't dare to linger. They all ran away for their lives. The spacious seabed of the Sea of Annihilation now only had warriors from Desolate territory with the giant shadow. After a while, that shadow grabbed and tore a hole. Then, it scooped Audrey, Ming Hao, Brian, and Shuryen. Then, it ran toward the entrance to Desolate territory. Shuryen and the others were pulled into Desolate territory. Then, the massive shadow seemed to drain all the energy. It was divided into 3 pieces and returned to Shuryen, Audrey, and the God Lord. The spacious Sea of Annihilation seabed shrunk to 1/3 of its original size. It seemed like someone had drawn the energy of the space here, so it had to vanish. After a long time, a white crystal skeleton came to the place where the battle had taken place. That skeleton was the territory ancestor hero of the Whitebone clan. He was one of the 10 great territory ancestors of the vast Sea of Stars. Hero sensed for a while at that location. He was startled shortly after, the absolute beginning creature's aura. He lingered there for a long time and then wandered around the Sea of Annihilation to find something. However, he got nothing, so he had to return to his clan. Time flew fast. At a corner of the seabed, it was a world of mist and smoke inside a broken star. A figure's body was in the shape of a ball inside the piece of that broken star. It was Meiji, unexpectedly wrapped in surging vitality. At this moment, Meiji's peerless appearance was recovered. Her skin was smooth and bright. However, her breathing was very feeble. Meiji woke up in the world inside the broken star. Her remaining god power was less than the time she was most wounded. Her sea of consciousness was about to collapse, and she couldn't even condense her soul consciousness. She wasn't feeling good. Without the surging vitality in this misty world, her soul magnetic field was going to vanish and end her life. As she didn't have enough god power, she didn't dare to get out of the misty world. She could only wait here. She had to wait for Shuryen in agony. Using the tool fabricated by the Phantom Clan to measure time, she knew she had been here for several months. Shuryen hadn't come yet. Tears lingered in her eyes. She thought that Shuryen didn't survive this time. This misty world couldn't last for a long time. It was going to vanish soon. Meiji seemed to see herself walking to death. While her vision was blurred with tears, she saw a small figure appear outside the world in the rock. It looked like a little girl around 11 or 12 years old appeared. She looked really cute and pretty. The little girls looked at Meiji inside the rock, her eyes tender and loving. However, she spoke like a granny. Silly little child. The rock burst off and the misty world vanished. Meiji was released. Her eyes without focus looked at the little girl and she spoke as if she was dreaming. Granny. Sleep. Get good sleep. I'm here. No one can hurt you anymore. When you wake up, our phantom clan will have another territory ancestor. The little girl spoke softly. Meiji slowly closed her eyes. The little girl held her and nodded when she slept. They both vanished into thin air as if they were just a wisp of smoke. 3 days later, Farrell's lair in the Sea of Annihilation was cleared. The giant sea turtle he was riding was dismembered. Farrell's later generations were massacred. Farrell knew that, but he didn't dare to stand up against the murderers. He ran directly to the territory of the ancient monster clan, declaring his side. Then, he stayed hidden in the clan and didn't dare to get out. Almost at the same time, all the islands of the Soul Clan in the Sea of Annihilation were destroyed. The warriors of the Soul Clan based in the Sea of Annihilation were slaughtered. Neptune had already returned to the headquarters to cure his wounds. He was in a similar position as Farrell, hiding and retracting his neck. Chapter 1470, Shaking Fallout. Chapter 1470, Shaking Fallout. Underscored deep in the sea domain of nihility. Countless ink-like clusters of clouds hovered in the void. That sea of black clouds carried the mountains, lakes, and many palaces and towers. The members of the Soul Clan were operating around. Groups of departed souls and ghosts flashed in the sky. It was a base of the Soul Clan. A black mountain range stretched on the black clouds. Wailing ghosts were crawling inside a black cloud where the muffled roaring echoed. Many members of the Soul Clan gathered by the cave and discussed secretly with sinister faces. Sir Neptune had bad luck this time. Even though he was at Territory Ancestor Realm, he had run helter-skelter to return. I heard that the absolute beginning creature Desolate appeared on the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation. It overturned the situation right away and killed many Immortal Realm experts of the Sea of Annihilation. Well, I heard rumors that Desolate is separated because it's severely hurt. The 3 parts of Desolate were on the seabed at that time. After the 3 parts had united, it was able to use its earth-shaking energy. Neptune was hurt badly and he had to run away. Oh gosh. How formidable Desolate is. Just 3 pieces of his body and he could assault Neptune badly. Most of the warriors of the Soul Clan who were discussing were at Incipient God Realm or Immortal Realm. They were surrounding the cave as they were in charge of protecting Neptune and serving him. A lanky figure emerged from the sea of clouds far from them. He was a good-looking man with feminine contours. He looked around 30 years old and wore a simple brown-gray gown. Forefather Earthghoul was servile as he bent his upper body and followed the handsome man like a dog. The Soul Clan warriors who were discussing had hot and admiring looks on their faces when they saw the man. They kneeled down and screamed, "Welcome, tribal oldie serene prison." The handsome man with soft contours wore a faint smile as he nodded to them and entered the cave directly. Forefather Earthghoul came after him. The walls inside the cave hung billions of souls and ghosts. A Chiltobone pond was situated in the middle of the cave with more departed souls and ghosts. Neptune was naked and soaking in that cold soul pond. Sometimes his body flashed dazzlingly. After each flash, he screamed in agony. The soul pond was the ancient formation that used the souls in the mountain range as the source of energy. It was the place the Soul Clan used to heal elders and the commanders. After the handsome man got into the cave, he checked Neptune and sighed, "You had bad luck, indeed." Neptune was surprised when he saw Serene Prison come personally. He bowed slightly to show his respect while still staying in the pond. "I didn't estimate that 3 clones of Desolate gathered there. Because of my soul river's threat, Desolate's consciousness was awakened deep in that kid's soul. It had used its supernatural power to gather the 3 clones and hit me hard." Forefather Earthghoul had already reported the incident on the seabed to Serene Prison. "How much time do you need to recover fully?" "I don't know," Neptune winced. "The light orb in my body continuously eroded my blood and flesh. If I hadn't returned on time, I couldn't have kept this body." Without the precious materials from earth and heaven, I will need at least 300 years. I lost the soul refining cauldron too. My competence is greatly reduced. I'm here this time to give you a territory soul our clan has nurtured for years. We've kept this soul for a long time. I hope that you will recover fast and improve your competence after you swallow it, said Serene Prison. Neptune looked thrilled. Why? The territory soul was actually the soul of an expert at third sky of Immortal Realm. With some secret techniques, they could nurture it until it was as strong as the soul of a territory ancestor. The Soul Clan saved this sort of soul for the warriors who were about to reach the territory ancestor realm. Taking a territory soul, the warrior could have a bigger chance to obtain dark energy and become a territory ancestor. The territory souls were very precious. There were a few of them in the entire Soul Clan. Normally, unless the territory ancestor was facing death, the clan wouldn't give the territory soul to recover him. Neptune thought that it was strange because his situation wasn't that hopeless. Although 300 years was a long period to recover, to the experts at his level, it was as long as a snap of his hand. However, it would take several thousand years or more to nourish a territory soul. Except for time, they needed to provide endless souls to that territory soul to help it grow. Neptune's 300 years was never be worth a territory soul. Our clan needs your power. If it were in the past, they wouldn't give you a territory soul. But now, the sea domain of Nihility's situation is changing. Within 300 years, a war will start. Thus, we must increase the clan's overall competence. Serene Prison wore a stern face. After you take the soul, not only should you recover, but I hope you will also increase your power. That's how we can ensure our advantages in the future war. Neptune pondered for a while in the soul pond. He bent his body and spoke in a low voice. I won't fail you. Serene Prison nodded to him. Mysterious Sky Clan's territory. Many ancient cities were built on a spectacular continent that was the combination of many continents. All the cities were colossal and majestic. That continent was another mysterious area of the sea domain of Nihility that could attract free energy and make them flow into the continent. At the same time, there were so many asteroids hovering around and creating a natural jam to the battleships traveling through the area. Deep in the continent was a sealed area that only the ruling echelon of the mysterious Sky Clan could visit. That sealed area was actually a vast valley with dozens of bright entrances leading to different territories. Those territories belonged to the mysterious Sky Clan and were under their management. At this moment, Tu Shirchi, Yeyun, Forefather Dragon Lizard, and dozens of elders from the mysterious Sky Clan were gathering in the valley. All of them had stern countenances while gazing at an entrance. It was where Han Tian was ascetically cultivating. Everybody kept silent and waited for Han Tian. After an unknown time, the entrance radiated gold light rays. A brawny old man with bird nest hair walked out of the entrance. He glowed in good health, wore hempen garments, and was barefooted. He looked at the warriors surrounding. The members of our clan presented on the Sea of Annihilation seabed at that time, are you too? He looked at Tu Shirchi and Yeyun. The two nodded hurriedly. Han Tian sighed. That little girl Ling Mei was really talented. However, she has heavy mind schemes. I knew she would encounter a culpa, but I didn't know it came that early. Everybody kept their heads low and didn't dare to answer. Are you sure Yen is Bloodthirsty's disciple? The shadow that appeared at the last moment was the combination of Desolate's 3 clones. He turned to Tu Shirchi. Tu Shirchi nodded. Yen cultivates Death Power Upanishad and Devouring Power Upanishad. Yeah, there is no need to talk about the Death Power Upanishad, but the Devouring Power Upanishad. You told us that only Bloodthirsty cultivated such a power. Yen must be his successor. About the phantom that flew out of Yen and the other 2 warriors from the Desolate territory, it was likely Desolate. Dragon Lizard had sensed the distinctive aura of the absolute beginning creatures. Han Tian looked pensive for a few seconds. Bloodthirsty was more intimidating than you thought. If he was still alive, he could stir up the sea domain of Nihility. Desolate is still incomplete. We can tell that from the fact that it stayed in 3 warriors. It seems that Desolate territory is really complicated. For Father, what should we do? Too sure, Chi asked for direction respectfully. Find the entrance to Desolate territory first. Otherwise, we can't do anything. Han Tian said as he shook his head with a sigh. Pay attention. I think the war between the 7 clans will happen soon. That expert of the Phantom clan has risen big waves in the Sea of Annihilation because Meiji was hurt badly there. Hero has personally come to the Sea of Annihilation to pick up their 2 ancestors. Fortunately, they haven't awakened yet. Otherwise, the trouble would be much bigger. Understood. 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 Sea of Annihilation. So many massive skull islands were moving slowly on the sea surface. The little skeleton was sitting cross-legged on one of those skull islands. His parents lay in the 2 coffins next to him. He was watching over his parents in silence. Hero of the Whitebone clan was a little begrudging. We should return to the headquarters of the clan first. We will figure out how. We will find an expert cultivating life power Upanishad. Shuryen has the life absolute beginning original symbol. He's the best choice, isn't he? Asked the little skeleton. Yeah, he's our best choice if we can find him. Hero's eyes turned dark. I was late. When I went there, everything was done. I searched around the Sea of Annihilation seabed, but I didn't find the entrance to Desolate territory. Anyway, I've asked our warriors in the Sea of Annihilation to check every entrance. Once we get the news, I will handle it personally. They are all trying to find the entrance to Desolate territory, right? Asked the little skeleton. Yeah. The members of the 7 clans are looking for the entrance to Desolate territory. Once they get it, many experts will go there. Hero nodded. The little skeleton kept silent. In a beautiful area of broken stars inside the sea domain of nihility, so many pieces of broken stars like crystals had piled up to create a massive, sparkling continent. This shining continent had so many flowers and luxuriant trees. The rivers here carried amazing spirit chi and meandered around the mountains with many precious birds. Many exquisite towers and palaces had decorated this continent. Beautiful people walked on the ground or rode the massive birds or shuttle. On an island, Meiji was sleeping inside a massive yellow crystal ball. The crystal ball had many lights moving around. Those lights brought tremendous energy, which eventually entered Meiji's body. After an unknown time, Meiji opened her eyes. Her blurry consciousness became clear. She knew that she was home. Her soul consciousness moved around. She found that the consumed soul consciousness had returned. Dark energy murmured inside the sea of consciousness. Her snowy incipient extent was slowly transforming and expanded immensely. She knew that she was just one step away from Territory Ancestor Realm. She needed to calm down her mind to transform her incipient extent to break through to Territory Ancestor Realm. She remembered the little girl who had come and rescued her, muttering with gratitude, "Thank you, Granny." Chapter 1471, Desolate Territory's Outer Layer. Chapter 1471, Desolate Territory's Outer Layer. Deep inside the chaotic space basin, some silhouettes were gliding in cold and desolate area. They all looked exhausted and dispirited. Surprisingly, they were Xianhe, Frederick, Adele, DeCarlos, Lei, and Azure Dragon. They were immortal realm experts, the peerless existences in Desolate territory. That year, they had tried to worm through the space door that Shuryen had opened. We had changed their destination. They didn't enter the sea domain of nihility. They were teleported to a strange and remote area in the chaotic space basin. As DeCarlos also cultivated space power Upanishad, he had tried to break the space to return to Desolate territory. Unfortunately, the door between Desolate territory and the chaotic space basin was closed. DeCarlos had reached the immortal realm, but he couldn't enter Desolate territory once again. This group of experts could only wander through the space basin and try to get out of here. After dozens of years, they were still here and had no clue. At this moment, they all looked glum as they were trying to resist the attacks from outer space streamers. The turbulent space basin didn't have Earth and Heaven energy. They couldn't refill the energy they had consumed. After dozens of years, half of their power was used. DeCarlos, what's the relationship between Desolate territory and the chaotic space basin? Xianhe stood by Adele, his eyes restless and bitter. At first, he had been calm. The knot between him and Adele was untied, so it wasn't really troublesome to stay here. Then, as his god power got drained, he recognized that this was a dangerous situation and tried to find a way to survive. Thunder Dragon Lady and Holy Beast Azure Dragon couldn't get along still. They moved away from each other and quarreled all the time. But now, they were all calm and they didn't want to talk or argue anymore. Right, what's between the desolate territory and the turbulent space basin? As you cultivate space power, Upanishad, I assume you know it, asked Adele. DeCarlos contemplated for a while and then used his god power to create a globe. The globe slowly ballooned until it was the size of a room. DeCarlos cut the space inside the globe and they became misty areas. Slowly, those areas began to have light dots. Desolate territory looks like this globe. Each of the immense gray areas is a star area. Agate star area, Ancient God star area, and Sirius star area are all in there. They're parts of the globe. Those light dots are the suns and moons of each star area. After DeCarlos explained, his power changed and beams of light shone inside the globe, creating many nodes as the beams crossed each other. The points where the light beams cross are space nodes that connect to each other. Warriors with space power Upanishad can use those nodes to move from one star area to another. Each star area has countless space nodes. Warriors with a profound space power Upanishad can use a space node to move to another space node in any corner of desolate territory. Leaping through the star areas actually means jumping through space nodes. He wore a pensive face as he changed his power. So many misty areas appeared outside the globe like the atmosphere on a planet. The misty spaces form the chaotic space basin, is separated from desolate territory. They are separated by the territory barrier or that wall. That barrier was created by Desolate. It's hard to pierce through it. Until we reach Desolate's level, we can't tear its barrier. Previously, I could use the space nodes inside Desolate territory to jump and hide in the chaotic space basin. When the space nodes shatter, they will create space cracks leading to the space basin. Also, when I am in the space basin, I can use my space power Upanishad to jump back to desolate territory through the space nodes. Pausing for a while, DeCarlos looked begrudging. But now, I can't connect with the space nodes inside desolate territory. It's not that the space nodes are broken. Desolate's barrier has stopped my soul consciousness from piercing through. To be more exact, the entire desolate territory is closed. We can't get in or get out. If Desolate is a globe and the space basin is outside this globe, from where did we enter Sea Domain of Nihility? Asked Xianhe. I'm looking for it. I think we're close. The territory entrance is the adjoining area between Desolate territory and the Sea Domain of Nihility. The Sea Domain of Nihility has so many wonders. Perhaps we can find a way, said DeCarlos. Everybody was silent as they followed DeCarlos and wandered. After a long time, they had reached a place where mist and smoke hovered. The soul consciousness was blocked and DeCarlos had never visited this area before. The chaotic space basin is open. It's not smaller than Sea Domain of Nihility. After I've reached the immortal realm, I often came here, but I have never explored it completely. I don't know many places, so it's easy to get lost. DeCarlos explained as he took people to that foggy area. This area has some strange and fierce energy fluctuations. Perhaps we may find something. Let's get in there and see. They moved through the thick mist. After several months, they crossed the area and a vast sea appeared in their vision. That sea bobbed in the chaotic space basin as if it was a living being. There was no end. However, as soon as Xianhe and the others saw the sea, they were excited and screaming. It's the river. We had followed this river to get to the Sea Domain of Nihility. Listening to him, everybody was stimulated. They entered the sea and used the power Upanishads and God power to fly fast. There was no island on the sea. There was no rock either. The water was really shallow. They could see the bottom. The seabed looked vast and misty like a cloud, which was somehow marvelous. People flew through the sea and found the entrance to Desolate. Everybody now had hope. One day, as they were gliding fast, their faces changed. They had to lift their heads to observe. Far away from them, halos flashed. Then, they saw some figures surfing. He was surprised. He tried to run at his fastest speed in that direction. Everybody was hesitant as they followed the figures, their faces surprised. Shortly after, he was the first one to arrive at that area. At a first glance, he gawked and his jaw dropped. 3 people were unconsciously floating in the sea. They were Yen, Audrey, and God Lord Brian. They were still breathing steadily, but they seemed to be in some strange condition where they couldn't wake up. Minghao was there too. He was still in his soul form, but he looked baffled as if his soul was hurt severely. He was dumbly whining about something. Shortly after, Adele, Frederick, DeCarlos, Lady, and Azure Dragon gathered by him. Minghao, Yen, God Lord, Audrey, they all screamed as they were astonished. That year, they had followed Yen to escape, but they were scattered and had lost contact. Today, seeing Yen and the others, they instinctively thought that we had put them into the space basin too. They had to use their energy and now, they were exhausted. Minghao was baffled, but he was awakened from their screaming. He lifted his head and became completely bewildered. Why are you here? Minghao screamed in fear. We're always here. He answered. How about you guys? What happened to you? You've been trapped here and you have consumed all of your energy? Minghao thought for a while and then shook his head with a bitter smile. It's a lot more interesting. Sigh, I can't tell you in just one breath. We've just returned from the sea domain of nihility. The sea domain of nihility? He and Adele screamed in unison. Brother, what happened? Why is Audrey unconsciousness? Cried Adele. Minghao looked at Yen, Audrey, and the God Lord, his face complicated. I can't tell you in just a breath. We've been trapped here for dozens of years. We have plenty of time. You can take your time and explain, shouted DeCarlos. Minghao pondered for a while and then nodded with a forced smile. He explained everything in detail from the time he and the God Lord were locked on the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation. They couldn't escape until Yen came. Yen had the absolute beginning original symbol and the power Upanishad symbol tower, which had made so many warriors of the Sea of Annihilation vie for and rose the battle between the territory ancestors. Eventually, Yen's, Audrey's, and God Lord's souls had gathered and turned into a massive shadow, which had overturned the entire situation single-handedly. He and the others were astonished as they listened to him. If it wasn't told by you, I would never have bought it. I can't believe that the sea domain of nihility is much more wonderful than what we had thought, he sighed. I've visited the sea domain of nihility, but I have never seen any warrior. According to you, perhaps we were all wrong. Because we had taken the shortcut, we didn't appear on the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation. We deviated. He looked regretful. DeCarlos and the others also sighed. They were shocked by what Minghao had told them and they sighed because of the adventure the others had taken. Eventually, they became quiet. After a while, Holy Beast Azure Dragon broke the silence. So, it's Desolate who rescued you and brought you back here. How is it now? Everybody was suspicious. Minghao turned to Yen and said bitterly. That shadow had separated into 3 parts and disappeared into their bodies once again. They are still unconscious now. I guess we have to wait until they wake up to know what happened. You say that you've been trapped here for dozens of years. Do you know the current situation of Desolate territory? Minghao changed the topic. This time, he and the others forced a smile. No, we know nothing. Before we've caught you here, we'd been wandering around and trying to find the entrance to Desolate territory. We haven't seen anyone. We're just wasting our time here. Only the ghosts know what's going on in Desolate territory. Perhaps Hui has destroyed or even swallowed Desolate territory, sighed Adele. We must find a way to come back, shouted Minghao. Yen. DeCarlos looked shocked. He's the key. He cultivates space power Upanishad and he fused with Grace Mainland. He can do what I can't. He can rely on the connection with the origin to make his power Upanishad pierce through the barrier. We'll wait for him then. Everybody agreed with him. Chapter 1472, Awaken One by One. Chapter 1472, Awaken One by One. Shiryen, Audrey, and the God Lord floated on the river. Their breathing was long and their vitality was surging. However, they hadn't woken up yet. Xianhe and Minghao hovered by them and tried to find a solution. The God Lord hasn't woken up yet. It's a good chance. We've been fighting against the God Clan for 10,000 years. As long as we kill him, the God Clan can't rise again. Frederick had ruthless light in his eyes, his face filled with murderous intentions. We can take revenge for our master. What do you think? He turned to Xianhe and Minghao, the two leaders of the bloodthirsty force. Xianhe shrugged and said, "Well, it seems that Minghao is happy when he stayed with the God Lord. Perhaps he doesn't want to take revenge for our master." Adele and the others turned to look at Minghao. Minghao's eyes were so deep as he pondered. After a while, he said coldly, "Right, I don't support killing Brian now because we don't know the situation in Desolate territory. If Desolate territory is now something in Hui and Tianxia's pocket, we need the God Lord to bond with the God Clan." "You think so?" Xianhe discolored. "I think after we had disappeared from Desolate territory, perhaps the God Clan is subject to Hui. See, the great four heavenly kings weren't here. They didn't leave with us. With their realms, they weren't equal opponents to Hui and Tian Xian. They didn't have another option but death if they didn't surrender," said Minghao. They all kept silent after Minghao had explained it to them. Time flew hurriedly. Several months had passed like a blink of an eye. They still guarded the area and waited for Shiryen to wake up. However, it wasn't Shiryen who woke up the first. It was Audrey. Audrey had a long dream. She was so intimidating in her dream. She had fought and killed a lot of experts. In her dream, she had everything. After opening her eyes, she was bewildered as she found an item in her head. Her soul consciousness gathered, and she was surprised as she saw a little jade cauldron in her head, which, unexpectedly, used to belong to Neptune. Soul refining cauldron. An absolute beginning divine weapon. Audrey was so thrilled. The aura from the jade cauldron vaguely matched with her breathing, will, and thought. Also, it had even connected to her blood. That jade cauldron seemed to become her heart and limbs. It was the sign of a complete fusion. She sent a wisp of her soul to the inside of the cauldron. It was a wonderful world with countless soul drawings on the horizon of an immense, gray sky, creating a thick mesh net where so many souls were cultivating. The soul-refining cauldron could keep, nourish, refine, and make souls cultivate themselves to upgrade. Audrey's cold face blushed in excitement. She squeezed her fists and almost screamed. Cough, cough. Minghao gave a slight cough to remind Audrey, waking her up from the world inside her head. Audrey's consciousness came back to her. She saw her mother, Adele, Xianhe, and Frederick. She couldn't help but cry in astonishment. "Why are you here? Do you know what happened to you?" asked Minghao. Audrey was bewildered. She tried to recall, but her mind was empty. "I don't know. It felt like my soul was sucked out. It was like a dream and I just woke up now." Swoosh! Minghao appeared on her shoulder like a little bat. He glanced at Audrey and said, "You've reached the immortal realm." Ah! Audrey and Adele screamed at the same time. Xianhe and the others were also surprised. You are," Adele pointed at Minghao. Minghao nodded, "Right. I am Minghao from Imperial Dark Tribe. 20,000 years ago, I was your grandfather's comrade. We'd accompanied each other for many years. Bloodthirsty had damaged us a lot. He also ended the ruling time of Imperial Dark Tribe. After that, the bloodthirsty force had risen. As you were with her all the time, you could know more." What happened?" asked Minghao. Everybody put on a curious face. Minghao pondered, his voice deep. Shiryen's life was threatened by Neptune's dark energy attack. Desolate's blurry consciousness alerted that its host could be destroyed, so it burst out instinctively. Also, Audrey and Brian happened to be parts of Desolate. Their origins have independent consciousness. They found that Audrey and Brian could be killed in that circumstance. Thus, they proactively joined Desolate's clone in Shiryen. You mean the fusion of the origin of Grace Mainland, God-blessed mainland, and ancient God continent is also the fusion of Desolate's body parts? Desolate's 3 clones recognized the dangerous situation, so they had to join each other temporarily to use Desolate's supernatural power. Minghao is surprised. So, it wasn't Desolate itself who had appeared all of a sudden and gathered its clones. The real Desolate is still in Desolate territory. Perhaps it isn't in a good condition, either. It wasn't free to care about the clones, right? Minghong shook his head. Desolate's 3 clones have independent consciousness, although they could be dormant while being fused with Shiryen, Audrey, and the God Lord. Anyway, they still have complete intellect. They originated from Desolate, but they are independent of Desolate. Of course, if they gather together, they are Desolate. Minghong's words weren't so clear. However, they were all smart people as they understood what he wanted to say. The 3 clones knew the threat. They joined each other to get a part of Desolate's supernatural power to overturn the situation. Audrey's part had seized the soul-refining cauldron on behalf of her. Brian's part had taken the qualification to advance to the territory ancestor realm. At this moment, God Lord Brian has dark energy, explained Minghong. Everybody was frightened. They turned to look at the God Lord, and they found him awake and sitting above the sea. He opened his eyes and looked at the others, talking calmly with a nod. Precursor Minghong is correct. I've experienced many things in a dream. I've perceived something. And now I understand dark energy. How about Shiryen? Xian He and Frederick screamed. What did Shiryen get? They all wanted to know this. Minghong forced a smile and shook his head. Logically, Shiryen's consciousness is the strongest. Because when Desolate's 3 clones gather, Audrey's and Brian's had proactively come to join his origin. Audrey got the soul-refining cauldron and she had entered the immortal realm. The God Lord got the dark energy that he had yearned for. As for Shiryen, I actually don't know. Perhaps we have to wait until he woke up to know what he had harvested. The remarks made people speechless and more curious. They hoped that Shiryen would wake up a little early. When did I swallow the immortal pellet? Audrey was shaken hard as she sensed the changes of her body and the magical transformation of her power Upanishad. In your dream. It has done everything it could. Minghong's eyes were filled with respect. After it had appeared, I stayed hidden in your incipient extent. I could vaguely see it using the immortal pellet to help you break through fast and enter the immortal realm directly. Don't think of anything else. Take a decent rest to carefully check the changes in your body and soul. Adele was so happy. She grabbed Audrey's hand and pulled her aside. Good child, it seems that you got the biggest harvest in the sea domain of nihility this time. Excellent. With you here, our Imperial Dark Tribe will thrive fast. I got all of Sing's slave souls from the Soul Clan. I know many secrets and techniques of the Soul Clan. They happen to match perfectly with our Imperial Dark Tribe's power Upanishad. Audrey's eyes brightened. I believe what I got can push Imperial Dark Tribe to another height. Excellent. Adele cheered. Brian, can you sense the situation of your ancient god continent? Asked Minghao. The God Lord lifted his head, his eyes glum. You're right. My clan has followed Hui. The situation of ancient god continent isn't right. I can vaguely check it. The 4 great heavenly kings now have an intimidating aura. I think they got dark energy too. Xian He, Frederick, and Lei Di paled. Carefree, Light, and the others were at second sky of immortal realm. They were strong already. Once they got dark energy, their competences were going to rocket. They would become the most terrifying opponents. Hui and Tianxie must have done some business with them and enticed them with dark energy. Otherwise, with their nature and learning ability, they would never have been able to learn dark energy in just a short time like that, said the God Lord. Can you use the body of someone in your clan to get through the barrier and get back there? Asked Minghao. Brian shook his head. I don't cultivate space power Upanishad. Otherwise, I can try. Desolate territory is closed now. Only Shiryen has a chance to take us out of here. He has the origin of Grace Mainland and the space power Upanishad. They are the advantages that we don't have. So we still have to wait for him to wake up? Lady forced a smile. You two have awakened. He's still unconscious. We have to wait until when? Do we have any method to wake him up? No, Minghao snorted. His condition only happens once in a blue moon. He must be learning something. If we wake him up, it will be dangerous somehow. We should just wait then. Right, we have to wait, said Xianhe. And they continued to wait for him. Time flew as fast as a shuttle. Several years had passed in the outer layer of the desolate territory. Xianhe and Minghao gradually went numb. They scattered to different areas of the river and discussed the power Upanishads or meditating alone. They had to wait for Shuryen. They didn't have any alternative. Until Shuryen began to shake. A terrifying energy fluctuated through his glabella. Then, the blood mark appeared on Xianhe's, Minghao's, and Frederick's forehead. Shuryen has finally finished refining the energy he got from the seabed. This power is so amazing. He can't endure it, so our mark now emerges, screamed Minghao, looking so thrilled. Xianhe and Frederick were also excited. They gathered and sat cross-legged in front of Shuryen to receive the enormous flood of energy that Shuryen couldn't digest by himself. Chapter 1473, Apprehend the Creation. Chapter 1473, Apprehend the Creation. Minghao, Xianhe, and Frederick sat in a triangular formation in front of Shuryen. They closed their eyes, focusing and releasing their soul consciousness. The blood mark emerged on their foreheads. At first, it was blurry, but then, it became beautifully crimson. Shuryen was still unconscious. Energy fluctuated terrifyingly in his body, especially deep in his brain. Waves of aura that could distort the soul made people worried about him. They thought that his soul would collapse soon. What's going on? De Carlos looked at Minghong in the distance with the hope that he would answer. Adele was bewildered. She looked at Minghao and Xianhe and felt worried. Minghao was her blood brother, and Xianhe was her lover. Of course, she didn't want anything bad to happen to them. Thus, she turned to ask Minghong, "What do you think?" Not far from them, De Carlos, Lady, and Azure Dragon also looked at Minghong and waited for his explanation. The battle on the seabed of the Sea of Annihilation had killed dozens of experts at the immortal realm. Shuryen had quietly taken in the essence chi and even their soul altars after they died. Those people had astonishing god power and powerful soul altars. I think the reason why Shuryen has been unconscious for a long time is that he has to digest an enormous amount of energy. Minghong pondered for a few seconds and then said, after such a long time, his devouring power Upanishad would work again to release the energy. Shuryen's body can't absorb all of them. He has to bestow the extra energy to the warriors cultivating the 8 great evil power Upanishads. Yeah, with their cultivation base, Minghao, Xianhe, and Frederick will receive great benefits from sharing the energy with him. Then, Minghong stopped and looked at the God Lord in vigilance. Although he didn't say anything, Adele, De Carlos, Lady, and Azure Dragon understood him. They then pulled serious faces. God Lord Brian opened his eyes, his face cold and dark. You think I would seize this chance to attack them? While I was dormant, you didn't assault me. Would I do that now? Snorting, he said, his voice stiff and cold, I've been slaughtering everywhere for my whole life. I've killed a lot of people and destroyed a lot of planets. But I have never done such despicable deeds. When I killed Bloodthirsty that year, I didn't know that he was hurt severely. Although I like killing, I'm always straightforward. I have never done anything contemptible. I think he knows how to behave. De Carlos curled his lips. Today, we don't know the situation of Desolate territory. The God Clan has subjected to Hui and Tianxia. He also needs our force. Harumph, the God Lord didn't have a friendly face. He looked as if he ridiculed their doubt. They could finally relax, but they were still careful enough to surround Shuryen and the others in case the God Lord was going to launch his ambush. Swish! 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 Wisps of gray energy flew out of Shuryen's acupuncture points and glabella. There were hundreds of streams, which were divided into 3 parts and entered Minghao, Xianhe, and Frederick through the marks on their foreheads. Minghao and the others shuddered slightly. They couldn't help but grin excitedly when they received the pure energy. Xianhe sensed carefully. The stream of energy from Shuryen's acupuncture points had turned into a cool stream, deluging his veins and running toward his god power ancient tree as soon as it got through the blood mark. His soul consciousness checked his body, and he saw that the branches of the god power ancient tree had become crystal like jade, each branch filled with pure energy. The ancient tree now looked like it was made of gemstone, sparkling beautifully and marvelously in his lower abdomen as the source of his enormous energy. As soon as the immense, gray streams of energy from Shiryan's glabella had poured through the blood mark, it became the tonic to his soul, nourishing his soul altar and strengthening his sea of consciousness. At the same time, it helped his host's soul discharge the dregs and contaminants. Eventually, his soul altar became sparklingly crystal clear. Frederick had the same feelings. The energy emitted from Shiryan had strengthened their god power ancient tree, cared for their soul altars, and helped them refine their body and restructure their soul altars. Minghao was shaken. He felt so wonderful that he couldn't describe it. Minghao cultivated the soul altar and his soul. His sea of consciousness was immensely vast. Each wisp of his soul consciousness connected to a clone. In his sea of consciousness, so many souls were bobbing like mere people. The soul energy from Shiryan had entered his sea of consciousness after it got through the blood mark. His soul altar had been quenched for hundreds of years, and his host's soul had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. Suddenly, he felt a vibe. The energy that had entered his sea of consciousness carried true soul power, which was ultimately pure. Instantly, it mingled with his sea of consciousness. Minghao sensed for a while and what Neptune had explained about the god power, dark energy, and the positive and negative energy suddenly became clear to him. Dark energy was the most refined and purest soul energy. The energy in the sea of consciousness had become clear as he had cultivated it with his own method. And now, it got the mysterious but intimidating energy. Oh! I got it! Minghao was so excited. He had a rare smile on his face. Dark energy was the soul energy, the real, pure soul energy. It was the refined god power, which then condensed and ascended to a whole new kind of soul energy. It was similar to his previous phrases. Before he had broken through to a new realm, the energy moving in his body was the original power. The original power was the energy of the low realm warriors. After they had broken through to profound realms, their power Upanishad and god body had transformed, and it was when they got their original power that they transformed to the god power. The god power was the original power that was condensed hundreds of times. The origin of the god power was the original power. In the same way, the origin of dark energy was the soul energy or the soul consciousness. It was a higher form of soul energy and soul consciousness. In short, dark energy was the true soul energy. He suddenly got the truth from his profound realm and what Neptune had explained about dark energy together with the energy Shiryan had gifted him this time. The soul energy Shiryan was sending him now had the aura of dark energy, which provided him with a better chance to observe and learn. Xianhe and Frederick were at only second sky of immortal realm, so their bodies and soul altars hadn't advanced enough to perceive dark energy. They didn't know the mysterious features of dark energy, so they couldn't learn dark energy this time like Minghao. The energy that flew out of Shiryan's labella hadn't ceased after several days. Adele had always noticed the God Lord as she was afraid that something unexpected would happen. Today, the God Lord, who had closed his eyes all the time, suddenly opened his eyes, revealing a pair of bright pupils. Adele, Lady, and the others changed their visages slightly. They couldn't help but turn tense and vigilant. Brian looked strange when he observed Minghao and grinned. Yeah, he's Minghao. Just half a step behind me. He has dark energy. He's truly the leader of the 8 chiefs. He hopes to break through to the territory ancestor realm then. He's my lifetime rival. Hearing him, Lady, Azure Dragon, and De Carlos were very surprised. They then sighed and envied the others. They exchanged looks and saw the complicated thought on each other's faces. When they looked at Shiryan again, Minghao and Xianhe looked odd. Many years ago, in this vast desolate territory, only Bloodthirsty had dark energy. It was also the reason why he had become the overlord of the Sea of Stars, the most acknowledged powerful expert. After he was gone, his body scattered in many places. The God Lord, Ling Xiang, Caesar, and Lorraine had used his bones to study the power of dark energy. However, none of them could figure out anything. Ling Xiang, Caesar, and Lorraine were at the first sky of immortal realm. Their bodies and soul weren't strong enough to perceive the energy. Thus, they were just wasting their efforts. As Brian and Ming Hao had known nothing about dark energy, they couldn't get the key from Bloodthirsty's remains. It was like the blind groping on things, but didn't know what they were. Quite the contrary, Shuryen, unknowingly, had used the devouring power Upanishad and become the first expert to get dark energy after Bloodthirsty. After Brian and Ming Hao had come to the sea domain of nihility, they knew how vast the world was. They knew about the territory ancestors, and what they talked about was dark energy. As they were the two outstanding and talented experts, they somehow got the key after listening to Neptune. Today, as Desolate's clones had affected them and with dark energy from Shuryen, these two had cleared the thick mist in their heads to perceive this advanced form of energy. After Shuryen, Brian and Ming Hao had successfully received dark energy. At their third sky of immortal realm, once they got dark energy, they were just one step away from the territory ancestor realm. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The acupuncture points and the glabella in Shuryen's body sounded strange. Eventually, the streams of energy emitted from him ceased. Xianhe, Frederick, and Ming Hao pulled themselves together to check their bodies and absorb the energy. At the same time, when the extra energy was discharged, Shuryen's acupuncture points and the black hole, which were his sluggish, delicate tools, were now moving again at a fast speed. Finally, Shuryen's consciousness returned to him. Refined energy from 720 acupuncture points in his entire body had entered his incipient extent. A marvelous wonder slowly unfolded in his galaxy incipient extent. The streams of energy in his acupuncture points swarmed into his incipient extent. Slowly, his incipient extent looked emptier as it expanded. The misty air hovered as if it was earth and heaven energy. It looked like a cluster of something chaotic. Slowly, that chaotic area had some changes. The pure earth and heaven energy slowly condensed and became brilliant stars with mountains, lakes, and foliage. Shuryen was shaken as if he had seen the images of a newborn world. He felt so touched that he wanted to cry. The earth and heaven energy in his incipient extent was clusters of moving air. When they expanded, they also widened the area. When they gathered, they created planets with mountains, lakes, and plants. Vaguely, he saw some shapes of creatures. However, all of them didn't have a soul. Whether it was the stars, the mountains, or an animal, they were just like a stone table. They were dead things. Until the black hole released pure dark energy, a mysterious soul aura was poured into the incipient extent. All of a sudden, some stars in his incipient extent seemed to get their soul flames ignited. They now had a feeble consciousness. At this moment, his host soul felt like the creator. He could feel the naive and shy consciousness of the newborn stars and the muffled, bewildered thoughts when their intellect had just formed. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.